Rebirth of the Hidden Mist Village in the ninja world. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76, Valley Siege. Send a signal. Let our people come to help. Standing outside the blockade, Ryuza reminded several of his fellow tribesmen behind him. There are many enemies, and even if Terumi Medi is well prepared, it is not so easy to defeat them. With the help of their tribe to share the pressure, this battle will be smoother. What's more, this battle was originally designed by him. If the Taketori tribe does not contribute, it will be difficult for Terumi Medi and her other Miss Ninjas to be welcomed in the future. Yes. A senior ninja guard standing behind Ryuza responded and then hurried out. This place is still a little far from the village of the Taketori tribe, and it is better to get closer to the village to send a signal. At the same time, as the first wave of ninjutsu attacks by the ambushing party was completed, the people brought by Biwajuzo in the encirclement had suffered a lot of injuries. Some were killed by the collapsed rocks. Some were killed by ninjutsu, and even if some did not die, they were seriously injured in the previous round of concentrated fire, and the situation was very bad. Facing King and others who had the upper hand and the advantage of the terrain, even if they tried their best to resist, it was still difficult to bear. Ninjutsu cover. Those who are good at close combat follow me to charge forward. Seeing the many Miss Ninjas lying in ambush in the valley, Biwajuzo gritted his teeth, then used chakra to attach his feet to the cliff, and rushed straight up. The situation is not good. They must break out of the siege as soon as possible and get out of here. Otherwise, they will be trapped in the valley and will be wiped out bit by bit sooner or later. It is also thanks to the power of chakra that ninjas can travel through mountains and rivers as if walking on flat ground. Otherwise they would be trapped in this valley today, and I'm afraid there is really no hope of survival. Amakusa Raigan, who is also a ninja sword user and wields the double swords Flatfish, also led some people to rush up along the other cliff. Although the possibility of successfully breaking through is greater if the force is concentrated, there are enemies on both sides of the valley. If the force is concentrated on any one side, it will face the situation of being bombarded with the back to the other side. More importantly, the enemy had occupied the terrain in advance and had allocated manpower reasonably so that they could maximize the strength of each person. However, they did not have the advantage of terrain. If they swarmed together to break out, the people behind would be blocked by the people in front and could not exert their full strength. Instead, they would be more likely to be attacked by concentrated fire and would be a perfect target. Dispersed action was not entirely a bad thing for them. Unfortunately, Ryuza's side had already planned. With the advantage of terrain and numbers, it would be difficult for the two ninja swordsmen to escape after falling into this trap. They are coming up. Do it. With another order, many ninjas from the Terumi clan on the valleys on both sides took a few steps forward. Dissolving style, dissolving monsters, dissolving style, dissolving monsters, dissolving style, dissolving monsters. They all puffed up their cheeks and then spit out streams of milky white mucus, which flowed down the cliff wall and covered most of the cliff. Be careful, that's Terumi's dissolving style. Don't get stuck with it. Biwajuzo, who was in the front, warned loudly. It was a kind of mucus with strong corrosive ability and strong viscosity. Once stuck, it was difficult to get rid of it, and it could easily dissolve and decompose the human body, which was very dangerous. Water style, water extreme wave. Seeing that the mucus was about to flow in front of him, Biwajuzo quickly formed a seal and spit out a high pressure water column, which immediately separated the mucus that rushed in front of him and opened up a clean path. And he continued to rush up along the safe path that had just been opened. However, not all ninjas have such powerful strength as the ninja sword user. A considerable number of people tried to imitate, but the power of the ninjutsu they used was not enough to separate the mucus impact, but was dissolved by the strong corrosive ability of the mucus. There were even some brave people who, with their flexible skills, chose the places that were not completely covered by the mucus and kept jumping and moving and quickly approached upwards. However, the goddess of luck did not favor them every time. Some of them slipped and stepped directly on the slime, and then they were completely stuck and unable to get out. They were slowly covered by the slime and finally melted under the wrapping of the dissolving slime with screams. For a moment, most of the mist ninjas were blocked by the slime covering the cliff and could not go up at all. At the exit of the valley, looking at the situation on the cliff, Ryuze couldn't help but sigh. The dissolving slime of the Terumi clan is really suitable for this kind of place. With the dissolving slime spreading on the field, it is difficult for the enemy to move, which can greatly hinder the opponent's actions. I think so too. Terumi Yuji nodded, and also led a group of fellow clansmen to spit out streams of milky white slime in front of the blockade. Although there were not many ninjas from the main family of the Terumi clan among the people he brought, only a few, it was still enough to easily seal the entire valley entrance with dissolving slime. Seeing that the milky white slime covered the cliffs on both sides and the ground in front. At this time, a small group of mist ninjas with more than a dozen people advanced along the valley to the exit. They wanted to break out from here. However, Terumi Yuji had already deployed the troops and ordered everyone to take the valley exit as a core and unite with their companions above the valley to build a solid blockade on the cliff. In other words, ninjas can use chakra to absorb on the cliff and ignore the terrain. It is impossible for normal people to build such a blockade on the cliff. The first to greet this group of enemies trying to break out was the long-range ninjutsu attacks of many mist ninjas. Water style, water wave, earth style, earth rift thorn. Faced with such attacks, the breakouts were also not vague and immediately used ninjutsu to block most of the offensive. However, those who did not block or dodge were seriously injured by Ryuze's party and even died on the spot. But they did not turn back to take care of their companions who fell behind, but continued to rush towards the valley exit. Seeing that they were about to rush into the area covered by the molten slime, the breakout who rushed in the front suddenly stopped and concentrated chakra to press his hands on the ground. Earth style, earth flow cut with a burst of earthquakes. The ground in front suddenly bulged and then split to the sides, and the rock walls on both sides seemed to be pushed back a lot. However, in a moment, the mucus-covered area created by the Terumi clan was easily cleared by the opponent, leaving only a clean road in the middle. No, stop them. With Terumi Yuji's exclamation, many mist ninjas were shocked and could not help but use ninjutsu to block them from a distance. The physical ninjas such as Rokuze, who are good at close combat, tightened their nerves and held their weapons tightly. My lord, please don't stay too far away from us later. Seeing the enemy gradually approaching, Taketori Shinsuke whispered to Rokuze. Okay, I'll pay attention. Rokuze nodded, with a serious expression on his face. At this moment, his side has the advantage, so it is naturally not his turn to fight desperately. Especially since he is only a genin level strength, he is even more unwilling to show off at this time. Chapter 77, Breakout failed. Boom. Even in the face of intensive ninjutsu bombardment, several powerful jonin among the breakouts still rushed to the front of the blockade. Want to escape? No way. A jonin guard beside Ryuze couldn't help but rush forward. They were not good at ninjutsu, so when everyone used ninjutsu to block the attack from a distance, they could only guard the defense line and watch from behind. Now that someone broke through the blockade and came to the front, they naturally couldn't hold back any longer and rushed forward. Ding. With a crisp collision sound, the bone spear and the small sword collided together. However, Ryuze's fellow guards obviously had the upper hand, and only one blow knocked the opponent back several steps. After all, the Taketori clan is famous for physical skills, especially the 6 guards who came with him are the elites of the clan. In terms of physical skills alone, there are not many people in the entire Kirigakure who can beat them. Taketori clan. The breakout also recognized his opponent, his face full of horror. However, Ryuze's fellow ninja was not satisfied yet, so he naturally could not let him go so easily. He immediately rushed forward and launched a swift attack. Clang clang clang. With the collision of weapons, the breakout was beaten back step by step, and he could only defend himself. He was left with many wounds. Finally, after fighting for more than 20 moves, he completely gave up the idea of breaking out from here, and hurriedly got out, and fled into the valley behind. Don't chase. Seeing that his fellow ninja still wanted to continue chasing, Ryuze hurriedly stopped him. This is an encirclement. If you rashly chase into the enemy's hinterland, it will not only interfere with your own ninjutsu attacks, but also put yourself in a situation where you will be accidentally injured. They only need to guard the borderline, and don't need to go deep. The fellow ninja he stopped was obviously not satisfied. He looked at the depths of the valley unwillingly, and then slowly retreated. As for the other breakouts who rushed to the front, they were also beaten back by the Mist Ninjas who were good at close combat outside the blockade, and no one escaped. However, compared to the ease here at the exit of the valley, the battle on the two cliffs was a bit difficult. Although there was long-range ninjutsu suppression, with two ninja sword users as the vanguard, the breakouts still rushed to the defense line above the valley, and the two sides launched a fierce confrontation. In this kind of melee, the role of ninjutsu will be greatly limited, and both sides mainly rely on physical skills to fight. The other breakouts are okay. The strongest is not as strong as the guards of the same clan around Liu's, but the two ninja sword users are a big trouble. Their swordsmanship is extremely superb, and they are also the top group of people in the entire Kirigakure. If not, they would not be qualified to hold those legendary ninja swords. You know, their Kirigakure adheres to the jungle survival law of respecting the strong, which is far more cruel and iron-blooded than the other 4 ninja villages. If their own abilities are not enough, their identities as ninja sword users will be taken away at any time. Biwajuzo wielded the huge beheading sword flexibly. Every time the sword fell, someone was chopped away. No one could stop him wherever he passed. He was about to kill through the defense line. Stop him, stop him. King Jian, who was not far away, saw his pupils shrink and rushed over with a kunai. These two ninja sword users were big fish. They had already made it clear that they would not surrender to Lady Terumi Medi and were enemies. If they could be captured here, it would certainly greatly reduce the resistance to Lady Terumi Medi's ascension to the throne. Therefore, he would never allow these two people to escape so easily. Boom. Another heavy sword fell, and Biwajuzo instantly chopped away several Mist Ninjas who were blocking the way. And the other Mist Ninjas who had been wandering on the edge finally waited for the opportunity. They looked at each other, pressed their hands on the ground together, and launched the ninjutsu. Earth style, earth spear, earth style, earth spear. Suddenly, countless sharp spears made of rocks protruded from the ground and stabbed at Biwajuzo from all directions. It's a waste of effort. However, Biwajuzo only snorted coldly, kicked the ground hard, and the whole person flew into the air, easily avoiding the sharp spears on the ground. However, having more people also has its advantages. He had just jumped up when several Mist Ninjas on the ground aimed at him and launched ninjutsu. Water style, water flow whip, water style, water flow whip. They gathered their chakra in their palms and immediately manifested a blue water ball. Then they whipped it hard towards the sky and immediately saw the water ball turned into long blue whips that were put on Biwajuzo's body. Everyone grabbed the water whip and pulled it down and immediately pulled Biwajuzo down. Seeing that he was about to hit the sharp earth spikes below, Biwajuzang immediately flipped his fingers and quickly formed seals. Water style, water extreme wave. After taking a deep breath, he immediately spit out a thin stream of blue rapids from his mouth. It was just that the preparation time was not enough this time. When he used this move again, the rapids were obviously much weaker than when he cut through the molten slime before. Even so, the moment he spit out the rapids, he easily cut through the many blue water whips tied to his body, and also cut off the several earth spikes under his feet, creating a safe foothold for himself. Boom. There was only a loud noise, and Biwajuzang fell heavily into the crack just cut by the rapids like a meteorite. Water style, water cannon. At this time, King finally came over and spit out a high pressure water bomb the size of a wash basin from a distance and smashed it towards Biwajuzang. Unfortunately, Biwajuzo slowly held the beheading sword in front of him and used the broad blade of the sword to easily block the ninjutsu attack. However, at this time, he also noticed that his subordinates who had finally rushed up were almost knocked down into the valley again. Only a few of those who had not been knocked down were still struggling, and most of the others were dead. As those subordinates were beaten back, all the pressure began to focus on him, and the situation became increasingly bad for him. Damn it, it seems I have to regroup and try again. He cursed inwardly and then retreated quickly and jumped off the cliff. Forget it, don't chase. Readjust the defense line. Don't let them take advantage of the loophole. King Jian hurriedly called out to his companions who still wanted to chase, and then ordered everyone to start sorting out the defense line that had just been disrupted by the enemy's attack and breakout. On the other side, at the exit of the valley, everyone suddenly realized that there were a lot of powerful chakra auras rushing towards this side from behind. Everyone, be careful. Terumi Yuji warned loudly, his face full of tension. Lyuze seemed a little more relaxed. Although he hadn't seen the person coming, he already had a guess in his heart. The person who could appear here at this time, and by such a coincidence, was most likely the reinforcement from the tribe he summoned, and unlikely to be their enemy. Chapter 78, Helping to Encircle. Ta. With a burst of dense and rapid footsteps approaching, a group of ninjas with red dots on their brows appeared in front of everyone. Sure enough, they are our people. Lyuze was completely relieved when he saw it. Also recognizing that it was a ninja from the Taketori clan, the mist ninja on Terumi's side also breathed a sigh of relief. With such a reinforcement army that is good at close combat, their encirclement can naturally become more solid. Where is Master Lyuze? Before approaching the valley entrance, many ninjas from the Taketori clan called out loudly. Seeing this, Taketori Shinsuke walked out and waved to everyone from a distance. Master is here. Hearing this, everyone gathered around and soon saw Taketori Lyuze, who was protected in the crowd. Hello, Master. Everyone saluted tacitly. However, after seeing the messy traces of battle in the valley, the leader bowed his head again and said, sorry, we are late. No, you came in time. Lyuze smiled and nodded. The ninja sword master brought nearly 400 ninja troops, plus the scattered mist ninjas gathered along the way. There were nearly 500 people. As for Terumi's side, in addition to the 200 baits, they had about 500 people ambushed here in advance, which added up to about 700. 500 versus 700, even with the advantage of terrain. It is not easy to easily eat the other side. Especially as the troops directly under the Mizukichi, they have always been the most elite part of the village. Even now that the situation has changed drastically, all forces have withdrawn their own manpower from the regular troops of the mist, and after additional reinforcement, the ninja troops brought by the ninja sword master are also quite combat effective. However, with the addition of the 300 elite ninja troops of their Taketori clan, the situation is completely different. 500 versus 1000. There is an absolute crushing in numbers, plus the advantage of terrain. Their side naturally has a much higher chance of winning. The power of their Taketori clan has already determined the outcome of this war. Above the valley, King, who was in charge of the commander, also noticed the arrival of the reinforcement of the Taketori clan. He immediately said to the assistant beside him, send someone to inform Master Taketori Rokuze immediately and ask him to mobilize the power of the Taketori clan to help stabilize the blockade. The strength of those guys below the valley cannot be underestimated. We need the powerful melee ability of the Taketori clan. The Taketori clan is not good at long-range ninjutsu attacks, but they are good at physical close combat, which can stabilize the blockade and prevent the enemy from breaking through. Yes, the assistant responded, and immediately went down the mountain, and quickly found Rokuze to explain the situation. Don't worry, I know the importance, and will not deliberately retain my strength. Rokuze nodded and sent the messenger away. Then he looked at many of his fellow tribesmen and said loudly, now, I want you to split into 2 teams, and then disperse to both sides of the cliff to help our allies hold the line. Remember, you must never underestimate the enemy without orders. Just hold the line and block the enemy. Yes. Everyone responded, and then automatically dispersed, quickly filling the encirclement centered on the valley. At the same time, seeing that Biwajuzo, the ninja swordsman, took the initiative to retreat, the people who were still climbing up the cliff also retreated to the bottom of the valley. Seeing this, the people on the cliff did not miss the opportunity and immediately used ninjutsu to launch a long-range bombardment. For a moment, all kinds of gorgeous ninjutsu were projected towards the bottom of the valley again. However, compared to the first time, when it was too sudden and caught off guard, Biwajuzo and others in the valley were prepared early this time. Earth escape, earth flow wall, water escape, water formation wall. Although it did not completely block the ninjutsu attack from above, it at least blocked 70% to 80%. Except for a few weak and unlucky guys, most people were safe and sound. In fact, because of the narrow terrain at the bottom of the valley, after they gathered their formation, they restricted the attacks of the ninjutsu above, which reduced their defense pressure and disguise. Seeing this, King, the commander, immediately issued an adjustment order. All ninjutsu type ninjas are divided into 3 echelons. The 3 teams take turns to cast spells and continuously attack the enemies below. Hearing this, everyone automatically divided into groups and attacked again according to the command. Seeing this arrangement, Liu Zen at the exit of the valley could not help but nod secretly, as expected of an existence that has been tested in the 4th Ninja World War. This rich command experience is not comparable to that of ordinary people. Although on the whole, the ninjutsu offensive of the crowd is not as strong as before, it can still achieve firepower suppression, and can also consume the chakra of those guys below for a long time. They have the advantage of numbers, and are not afraid of chakra consumption at all. When the chakra of those guys at the bottom of the valley is exhausted, it is the time for the opponent to die. Unfortunately, the valley entrance guarded by Liu Zen and his group is too narrow. Even if the ninja has the ability to climb rocks, as if walking on flat ground, it still cannot change the narrow terrain disadvantage here. If there are too many people breaking out, it will become more crowded. Once someone uses a large-scale ninjutsu attack, there is no place to hide, and it is easy to be caught in one fell swoop. Therefore, only a small group of ninjas tried to break out from here, and most of them chose the wider cliffs. At this moment, those guys in the valley retreated to the depths, leaving them no room to show their abilities. This made Liu Zen, who wanted to test his skills, feel a little depressed. You know, since returning to the village, his strength has increased rapidly, and now it has far exceeded that of ordinary genin. I thought I could try my skills this time, but who would have thought that there was still no chance? At the same time, the people who were forced into a group by the ninjutsu attack above the valley were extremely anxious. My lords, our companions in charge of defense can't hold on for much longer. Come up with a plan quickly. Someone urged the 2 ninja sword users anxiously. Feeling the violent fluctuations coming from above, Biwajuzo gritted his teeth and said, "Try again. If we still can't break out, then we can only try other methods." Hearing this, Amakusa Raigen was stunned for a moment, and couldn't help asking curiously, "What other methods do you have?" "Find a few ninjas who are familiar with Earth escape, and let them dig holes directly from the mountain, to open up an extra escape route for us." Biwajuzo replied with a serious face. "That's a good idea." Amakusa Raigen's eyes suddenly lit up. If they can really succeed, they can immediately reverse the current terrain defects. At that time, the entire huge mountain will become their excellent protective bunker, making it difficult for those guys above to attack them easily. But it's not easy to get through the entire mountain. It takes too long, and it's easy to be discovered by the people above. I don't want to try it, unless it's absolutely necessary. Biwajuzo shook his head. For their current situation, the sooner they break out, the better. If they delay too long, their chakra will be consumed a lot, and it will also be difficult to guarantee their lives. Chapter 79, No Hope of Escape. Well, let's try to break through one last time. Amakusa Raigen nodded. Then, under the leadership of the 2 ninja swordsmen, they were mainly divided into 2 forces, and once again chose to break through from the 2 cliffs. As for the narrow valley, entrances at both ends, only a few people who were unwilling to give up went to try. However, they were trapped in the valley, and didn't know that, while they were hesitating, another group of ninjas from the Taketori clan came outside the valley to strengthen the blockade. Although the Taketori clan only had about 300 reinforcement this time, the ninja troops led by Biwajuzo were not many, only about 500 in total. Excluding those who had died in battle and lost their combat effectiveness, they probably still had nearly 400 people. Breaking through is not just relying on blood and courage, rushing forward without thinking. They also need some people who are good at ninjutsu to be placed behind the team to resist the long-range ninjutsu attacks above the valley. Otherwise, I'm afraid that, before they rush to the other side's defense formation, their own people will fall down first. Therefore, apart from the ninjas who were placed behind the team, To provide long-range ninjutsu cover, the number of people who were truly good at physical close combat and could be used for frontal breakthroughs would not exceed 300. The Taketori clan did not have many reinforcement, but they were enough to deal with the main assault forces in the front row. As the main forces in the front row were blocked, the result was predictable. During the first breakout, they could barely shake the blockade of Terumi's side and see the hope of breaking through. But during the second breakout, with the addition of the Taketori clan, Terumi's blockade was directly strengthened several times. Unaware of the situation, Biwajuzo and others bumped into it head-on and were immediately hit and bleeding. They did not even last for 10 minutes before they were forcibly repelled and forced back into the valley again. Damn it. Damn it. Biwajuzo slashed the cliff with a knife, leaving a deep knife mark. At this point, he didn't understand that the Taketori clan and the reformists had already set a trap and had been waiting for them to jump in. No way. It's impossible to break out from above. We can only dig a tunnel to escape. Sticking flatfish on the ground, Amakusa Raigen sighed helplessly. Not only did they fail to break out, but even with more adequate preparations, they suffered more damage than the first time. Even their 2 ninja sword users were injured and almost died on top several times. The reinforcement of the Taketori clan completely blocked their possibility of breaking out. If they continue to try this twice, their troops will be completely consumed on the blockade line and annihilated. Smash the cliff above and use the boulders to temporarily resist the attack from above. Biwajuzo immediately cheered up and issued the next order. Then, under the deliberate control of many Miss Ninjas, they used ninjutsu and detonating tags to collapse a large area of the cliff above and used falling rocks to block the bottom of the valley. Have these guys completely given up and are ready to commit suicide? Taketori Shinsuke was stunned. No, it shouldn't be that simple. Liuze shook his head and looked at Terumi Yuji, who was not far away, with a serious face. Please send a sensory ninja to conduct an in-depth investigation immediately. Understood. I'm already doing it. Terumi Yuji nodded. Not only him, but even King on the top of the valley also sent a sensory ninja to investigate. Unfortunately, due to the collapse of the cliff, their perception ability was seriously hindered. As a last resort, the sensory ninjas could only go deep into the valley and close the distance to investigate. However, the collapse of the cliff hindered their perception and also hindered the enemy's attack. As long as they did not directly enter the bottom of the valley, they would not be in any personal danger. Soon, the situation below was understood by many sensory ninjas and fed back. It seems that they are not all a group of idiots. After knowing the news, Taketori Shinsuke sighed. To be able to become a ninja sword user, it is naturally not an easy person. Otherwise, they would have been killed and their identities taken away long ago. Liuze did not seem too surprised. I just don't know how our commander is going to deal with it. As soon as he changed his voice, he looked up at the top of the valley. The Taketori clan only had about 300 people, and they were not the main force of the coalition forces this time. Moreover, the Taketori clan was not good at dealing with such a complicated battle situation. Therefore, they could only see what King above planned. However, King was a ninja who had participated in the 4th ninja world after all, and his vision and experience were impeccable. After just a little thought, he issued a new order. Shrink the encirclement inwards and open up the valley again. We must get rid of them before they completely open up the mountain. In addition, find some ninjas who are familiar with Earth escape from the outside to perform magic from the outside to interfere with the actions of those guys below. As the order was issued, everyone began to act. Liuze and others who received the order also followed the valley in trance and moved inward. Not long after, they were blocked by a collapsed rock wall. Please help clear the way. Liuze turned around and looked at the several ninjutsu type ninjas behind him. The Bamboo Cutter clan is good at physical skills, so their physical strength is naturally not bad. If they want to dig these rocks blocking the road with their bare hands, it is not difficult, but it will take too long. At this time, the role of ninjutsu ninjas is particularly prominent. After all, under normal circumstances, the destructive power of ninjutsu is far greater than that of physical skills. Then, 2 ninjutsu ninjas stepped forward and silently began to form seals to condense chakra. Earth escape, earth splitting palm, earth escape, earth splitting palm. They put their hands on the rocks in front of them and pressed them lightly. The rocks blocking the road instantly collapsed and then turned into countless rubbles and scattered. The road was opened and Liu and his party continued to move forward to the depths. However, there was no pattern at all in the collapse of this large-scale rock wall. After walking a distance, several people encountered rocks blocking the road again. In this way, they walked and stopped, which delayed a lot of time. Fortunately, King had been prepared and arranged for a strong ninja who was good at earth escape to interfere with the digging of the ninja sword user at the bottom of the valley through the mountain. Otherwise, with the destructive power of the ninja, this time is enough for them to break through the mountain and escape. I don't know how long it took. When the 11th rock obstacle was broken, the mist ninja who had sealed themselves in the valley appeared in front of Liu and others. Go to hell, there were no extra words. The moment the rock obstacle collapsed, the opponent decisively launched a ninjutsu attack. But unfortunately, before the rock collapsed, Liu's side noticed the existence of the enemy on the opposite side and made defensive preparations early. Therefore, facing such a surprise attack, Liu's side easily blocked it. However, as the rock obstacle was opened again, the two sides were no longer blocked. Feeling that they had been forced into a desperate situation, the ninja sword user immediately rushed out bravely. Chapter 80, Confrontation at the Gap. Although Liu and his men blocked the first round of attacks from the ninja sword masters, they still seemed a bit overwhelmed by the continuous flow of enemies behind them. Retreat, retreat quickly. Liu used bone spurs to block an enemy who rushed over and loudly reminded his fellow Taketori clan members to retreat. Because they were best at close combat, they stood in the front row, taking on the responsibility of defense and counterattack. But they were just flesh and blood. No matter how strong they were, they would be worn down to death by the human wave tactics when facing the continuous flow of enemy attacks. Therefore, they had to retreat, stretch the front line again, release the enemy, and let other companions who surrounded them share the pressure, instead of trying to block the gap by themselves without knowing their own strength. While Liu was blocking the enemy, Taketori Shinsuke, who had already solved the target in front of him, immediately aimed the bone spear in his hand at the enemy and stabbed him. In this melee, the man was not prepared at all and was easily killed by Taketori Shinsuke. "Are you okay, sir?" he asked Liu with concern, after kicking the corpse away. "It's okay. It's okay. Hurry back." Liu waved his hands and then signaled everyone to retreat under the cover of Taketori Shinsuke. His strength was still a little weak. He felt his arm aching just after blocking the attack of the Chunin. Fortunately, he was protected by Taketori Shinsuke and others, otherwise he would have died in this sudden melee. Then, at his signal, the group fought and retreated and stretched the battle line, while the companions who surrounded nearby took the opportunity to press from the side, intercepted the pursuing enemies, and shared the pressure faced by Liu and others. As one side gained, the other lost, and the pressure on Liu's side was shared, while the pressure on the ninja sword master's side increased. Originally, they relied on the advantage of the sudden attack to repel Liu and his group, but faced with other mist ninjas who surrounded them from all directions, the offensive was immediately curbed. What's worse is that it was just a gap, not enough to release their people at once, which also resulted in a limited number of people who could rush out from inside at the same time. Facing Liu's small team of only a dozen people, they could have some advantages, but facing Liu's shrinking encirclement, this sporadic output of people was just a tactic of adding fuel to the fire. As many as came out, so many would die. Seeing that the gap that had just been opened became a bloody grinding wheel, one after another, the mist ninjas fell outside the gap. "Don't go out, don't go out." Seeing this, Biwajuzo inside shouted to stop everyone. If they continued to rush out one by one, no matter how many people there were, they would not be enough for others to kill. Unfortunately, he reminded them too late. In just a short while, dozens of people had died outside the gap. Hearing his reminder, the people who were eager to escape finally calmed down. They did not continue to rush out mindlessly, but began to shrink inside one by one. "Sir, what should we do?" a subordinate asked Biwajuzo in a low voice. Glancing at the collapsed rocks above his head, Biwajuzo gritted his teeth and said, "Pass the order down. Everyone defend the dangerous area." As long as they can't completely clear the collapsed rocks above in a short period of time, their manpower will not be able to attack in large numbers. In this way, their numerical advantage will not be able to be brought into play. Wait until the mountain is completely broken through, and we can take this opportunity to escape their encirclement. Once they escape the encirclement, with the speed of ninjas, it would be basically impossible for the other party to beat them up, like they are now. However, having said that, as a ninja swordsman, he still felt aggrieved to be forced to this extent. Once upon a time, they were the representatives of the high-end military force of the Hidden Mist village, and each of them could be called a nation-destroying existence. Now they were beaten like dogs that had lost their homes, and it was really hard to swallow this breath. Amakusa Raigan, who was resting nearby, glanced at him without even raising his head and sighed. "It's no use getting angry, you should take the time to rest and recover your strength. Even if we open the cave in time, it will take a lot of strength to escape. What if? What if?" As he said that, he glanced at the collapsed rocks above his head and didn't continue. Because of the obstacles outside, their progress in digging the hole was not smooth, and he was very worried about how long these collapsed rocks that served as barriers could hold up. Hearing this, Biwajuzo bit his lips tightly, only glanced at the top of his head inconspicuously, and then closed his eyes to rest quietly. Outside, seeing that the enemy was no longer trying to break through the gap, many Miss Ninjas on Teruma's side rushed in impatiently. However, the situation on both sides was reversed, and they were the ones who suffered. The few people who rushed in through the gap did not help at all, but were easily strangled by the dense ninja swords inside. After losing several reckless guys in a row, everyone regained their composure and did not rush in rashly. Looking at this situation, we still have to continue to dig out the obstacles. Taketori Shinsuke shook his head when he saw it. The enemy was hiding inside and refused to come out, and their numerical advantage could not be used at all. Perhaps we can consider forcing them out. Didn't we just open a gap? Eliuser glanced at the gap not far ahead. He could even see the pairs of angry and frightened eyes in the gap. Yes, we can use that gap to launch ninjutsu attacks to force them out. Taketori Shinsuke and the group of mist ninjas beside him nodded repeatedly. Quick, notify Lord King and ask them to send a few powerful ninjutsu type ninjas over. Terumi Yuji immediately gave an order to a subordinate next to him. "I think you don't need to bother, they are already here." Eliuser looked up at the cliff. Many mist ninjas ran down from above, not concealing their powerful chakra aura. There is no doubt that they are all elite jonin. Before reaching the gap at the bottom of the valley, some people began to form seals while running. Water style, exploding water style, exploding water wave. They cast the spell almost at the same time, and then spit out a large stream of water from their cheeks. Although it looked ordinary, the water they spit out seemed endless, as if it was going to flood the entire valley. "Quick, stop the water," Eliusen exclaimed. Although the caster deliberately guided most of the water to the gap, some of the water still rushed towards them along the valley. However, there was no need to remind them. When they saw their companions above performing large-scale water style, the mist ninjas behind them were ready for protection. Earth style, earth flow wall, earth style, earth flow wall. Several mist ninjas cast spells at the same time, and immediately several thick earth walls rose from the ground, forming a high and thick barrier in front of Eliusen and others. Chapter 81, Defeat Revealed. Rumble. The rushing water hit the heavy earthen walls, but did not completely break them. Because this water escape technique is not a particularly powerful offensive technique, it is generally used to create an environment that is more convenient to use water escape. However, in such a narrow environment, even water flows without any offensiveness can become man-eating beasts. "Quick, stop those water flows, otherwise we will all be drowned in it," Biwajuzo exclaimed when he saw it. They relied on the collapsed rocks to block themselves at the bottom of the valley. Although they temporarily blocked the siege of Teruma's side, they also trapped themselves in a narrow area in disguise. Facing the surging water, if they were not dealt with in time, they would be drowned alive in it. Earth escape, earth flow wall, earth escape, earth flow wall. Several mist ninjas who are good at using earth escape formed seals and cast spells, and also created several high walls to try to block the water flow outside. However, there are more than one or two mist ninjas who came to fight against them. Lightning escape earthwalk, lightning escape earthwalk. They had already planned and launched another round of coordinated attacks. Arcs of electricity seeped out of their bodies and then gathered above their heads, turning into bright lightning that fell on the earth wall below. Boom boom boom. Lightning escape is known for its penetrating ability, and it has a certain restraint on earth escape ninjutsu. In just a moment, it broke the barriers outside the gap. As the earth wall was broken, the flood immediately rushed into the gap. Biwajuzo and others wanted to stop it again, but as the earth wall was broken, it was not only the flood that rushed in, but also the remnants of the previous lightning escape. The remaining lightning took advantage of the water and rushed in from the gap. The people inside were still making hand seals to condense chakra, but the moment their feet touched the water, they were shocked. Although it was far from fatal, it seriously interrupted the rhythm of their spells, making them completely unable to stop the flood. Crash. The water rushed in frantically, and in just a moment, it completely submerged the inside. Even though most of the Kirigakure ninjas are good at water escape, it does not mean that they can live in the water, because they cannot breathe normally in the water. At this moment, they were suddenly submerged by the water, and everyone was terrified, and began to rush out one after another, no longer caring about how to deal with it, nor caring about the dangers outside. Unfortunately, the gap was too small, and only a few people could pass through each time, and such a result would inevitably lead to no way for them to survive after rushing out. What awaited them was only a ruthless ninjutsu attack. In an instant, the Kirigakure ninjas on Teruma's side immediately used lightning, fire, and other escape techniques of various attributes to greet the gap. However, their luck was relatively good. Originally, Teruma's side was struggling to dig the collapsed rock layer below, and they were about to dig through it. At this moment, the water rushed in violently, coupled with the bombardment of various ninjutsu outside. The rock layer that originally protected the ninja sword was completely shattered, exposing the people inside. Go, kill. Seeing this, the many mist ninjas surrounding outside were even more unceremonious, and used all their strength to release various ninjutsu to kill. Those mist ninjas who had just emerged from the water had no time to react, and were immediately hit by the indiscriminate ninjutsu attacks. Many people sank back into the water, and could never come up again. TSK, 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 I'm afraid that nearly half of the people were killed directly. The two ninja swordsmen are doomed. Liuze, who was blocking the other side of the valley, was deeply moved. The destructive power of ninjutsu is really too strong, and coupled with a variety of changes and attributes, ninjutsu has stronger adaptability, and can deal with a variety of problems. On the other hand, their bamboo cutter clan occasionally dabbled in other basic ninjutsu, but after all, it was not their main practice, and the foundation was very shallow. Only those of the clan who had not awakened the corpse bone vein would slightly shift their focus, and put more effort into ninjutsu. Therefore, although they have a strong advantage in the field of close combat, their limitations are also very large. This time when he goes back, he has to consider spending some time on ninjutsu to make up for his shortcomings. As for the clan, even he cannot force the clan members to study ninjutsu to make up for the shortcomings, because this is a habitual problem. They, the Taketori clan, are good at using physical skills in conjunction with a routine of corpse bone vein for many years. Suddenly asking them to divide part of their energy to study something they are not good at will inevitably have resistance. This is like a long-term vegetarian who suddenly asks others to eat meat. Others will definitely be unwilling, even if he knows that eating meat will have benefits. Moreover, because they are not good at it, it will definitely be a waste of time to study it deliberately. After all, a person's energy is limited. It is naturally not worth the loss to ask the clan members to spend a lot of energy to study something that does not improve themselves much. Therefore, leaders can only let them make their own arrangements instead of forcing them to promote it. Only when they realize this, and then reasonably allocate their energy according to their personal situation, to take the initiative to learn. As he was talking, a Jonin-level Mist Ninja on the other side of the earth wall in front of Rokuze and his team dodged the ninjutsu attack, and jumped out of the water, then rushed towards them regardless of everything. He knew that their team was completely doomed, and they could only hope that he could successfully break out. Unfortunately, before he rushed to Rokuze, Taketori Shinsuke had already intercepted him. Seeing that the opponent was extraordinary, Rokuze naturally did not overestimate his ability to approach him, but silently raised his hands, spread his 10 fingers, and used the ninjutsu he mastered to harass remotely. Corpse bone vein 10 finger piercing bullet in an instant. 10 small bone spikes shot out from his fingertips and rushed directly to the target's face. However, a Jonin is a Jonin after all. Even if he was entangled by Taketori Shinsuke, Rokuze could not attack him at will. He just dodged Taketori Shinsuke's bone spear stab by turning sideways, and then turned the blade and accurately hit the 10 bone spikes. Snap. 10 bone spikes were immediately shot back by the blade, and after adding the power of the Jonin, the speed became even faster. Seeing that they were about to fall on Eliuze, another Jonin guard of the same clan rushed out in one step, raised his arms to block Eliuze. Snap. With a few soft sounds, the guarding clan member blocked all the bone spikes that bounced back for Eliuze. However, 7 of them were blocked by the bone spurs on his body and fell to the ground, and only 3 actually hit him. Seeing that the 3 bone spikes were surrounded by bright red blood oozing out. Sorry, I shouldn't have casually intervened in this level of battle. Eliuze immediately apologized to the clan member who was injured because of him. It's okay, it's just a superficial wound. Don't mind it, sir. The guard turned around and smiled and said, but your strength really needs to be improved. Try not to be blocked so easily next time. Hearing the ridicule, Eliuze smiled bitterly. Okay, I remember it. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 80 Tataruma's appearance. After a brief chaos, the stunned ninja swordsman finally recovered. No chance, fight to the death. Whether you can escape alive, leave it to fate. Awakens Raigen said to his companions, and then rushed out with Flatfish. The collapsed rock barrier has been opened, and they no longer have time to leisurely dig holes. They have no choice but to fight to the death. Seeing such a ninja swordsman taking the lead, the remaining Miss Ninjas also rushed out from the bottom of the water. At this time, after the messy ninjutsu bombardment just now, the weaker ones were either seriously injured or completely lost their combat effectiveness. Those who can still fight are at least special Jonin level 1. Flatfish liberation. With Awakens Raigen's light shout, the flounder-like sword immediately burst out with a powerful chakra and turned into a chakra light blade extending from the blade. Go to hell. He swung Flatfish with all his strength, and the chakra blade extended, sweeping towards the many Miss Ninjas on the cliff. Be careful, don't take it head on. King saw it and reminded loudly. However, Awakens Ryugen was one of the ninja sword masters after all, with superb swordsmanship and quick moves. Before the many Miss Ninjas on the cliff could react, they felt a flash of blue light in front of their eyes, and then they were hit hard, spitting blood and flying out. Seeing the leader so brave, the Miss Ninjas behind him suddenly had more hope, and they all accelerated to follow. Stop him, we must stop him. King was anxious, and immediately drew a samurai sword and rushed up. Not far away, several ninjas of the Bamboo Cutter clan also understood the seriousness of the matter, and they broke away from the defense line and surrounded him. The strength of the ninja sword master was too strong. If they were not taken seriously, it was very likely that he would tear open the blockade and let others escape with him. On the other side of the cliff, Biwajuzo also gave up other tricks to escape and only focused on breaking through. With his agile body, he quickly moved on the cliff and avoided a considerable number of ninjutsu attacks. For those that could not be dodged, he used the huge blade to block them. After blocking more than 20 ninjutsu attacks in a row, the beheading sword could no longer withstand the attack and broke into several pieces. However, Biwajuzo had already rushed to the front of the crowd's encirclement, swinging the broken sword to start the final fight. This ninja sword can absorb the iron element in the blood to restore the blade, so it is not afraid of damage. He only needs to fight to support the battle, and he will soon be able to restore it to its original state. But unfortunately, the newly joined Taketori clan became the biggest obstacle for him to break through. Several Taketori Jonin entangled him close, and there were sporadic long-range ninjutsu attacks from time to time outside, which further increased the difficulty of his breakout. The two powerful ninja swordsmen were like this, not to mention the other Miss Ninjas who tried to break out. Previously, they hid under the water and used the flowing water and corpses to block many attacks, but after coming out, there were no so many shelters, and they had to rely on themselves. A considerable number of them fell down before they rushed to the blockade and were killed by countless ninjutsu. Even if the rest barely rushed to the blockade, they could not shake it at all and were easily killed by others in just a few rounds. Seeing this, they fell down one after another. It seems that this battle should be over soon. Taniguchi's Rokuze couldn't help but sighed. Their position here is too narrow and not suitable for breaking out, so no one tried from the beginning. Especially after several rounds of fighting, the number of ninja swordsmen on the side became fewer and fewer, and even fewer people dared to try here. Occasionally, one came, but was easily blocked by Taketori Shinsuke and others, and was easily killed by several ninjutsu type Miss Ninjas on Teruma's side behind, leaving him basically no room for attack. At this moment, a familiar young female voice came from behind him. Yeah, it's almost over. It's just that so many Miss Ninjas didn't die in foreign wars, but died at the hands of our own people. It's such a pity. With a hint of doubt, Eliusa looked back and saw a girl with reddish brown hair appear in front of him. Why are you here? Eliusa was shocked. Because that was Meditarumi, the leader of the Miss Ninjas of the Reform faction. But he didn't remember when Meditarumi came here. Meditarumi smiled slightly and said proudly, I have always been here, but your eyesight is too poor, and you didn't recognize me. Always here? Eliusa was stunned for a moment, and a flash of inspiration suddenly flashed in his mind. He counted all the people around him, and immediately understood everything. So, you use the transformation technique to mix in with us. He noticed that the number of people around him was not less, but there was a young Miss Ninja from the Terumi clan who was missing. Obviously, this extra Meditarumi must have turned into the appearance of that Miss Ninja, and had been hiding beside them. How is it? A surprise, isn't it? Meditarumi said smugly. It's indeed a surprise. Rokuze nodded with a wry smile. So what are you going to do next? Kill them all? He asked tentatively. What about you? What do you think? Meditarumi did not answer directly, but kicked the question back and looked at the battlefield on the two cliffs. Rokuze sighed and said, after all, they are all compatriots from the same village. Killing them all is a bit cruel. Moreover, killing them will weaken the overall strength of Kirigakure. It will take more time to recover in the future. But, if we keep them, we can't guarantee their loyalty. What if they turn against us again, after returning to Kirigakure? Then we will let the tiger go back to the mountain. Unless you have a way to guarantee that they will never rebel again. Otherwise I suggest you kill them. In the end, he still tended to kill this group of Kirigakure ninjas completely. Looking at the figures falling from the cliff from time to time, Meditarumi said seriously with a serious face, yes, I don't want to do things too harshly and kill them all. But I can't guarantee that they won't rebel again after they surrender. Especially, the old guy of the third generation is still alive, and the power of the conservatives is still there, and has not been truly defeated. If I really take them back, I'm afraid they will turn their faces and refuse to recognize me immediately. So, I decided to kill them all, leaving no one alive. As she said that, her eyes had become extremely cold, and the murderous intent broke out of her body. Even though they were still 2 or 3 meters away, Eliusa still felt a piercing chill, and couldn't help but shudder. As expected of a strong woman who ended the dark age of Kirigakure, this decisiveness and ruthlessness are really not something that ordinary people can have. He sighed secretly. Suddenly, as if remembering something, Rokuze said immediately, I remember that the major forces in the ninja world seem to have some special techniques that can directly control life and death and prevent betrayal. Don't we in Kirigakure have it? Like the bird in a cage of the Hyuga family of Konoha and the seal of the tongue, to eliminate trouble of the Konoha root organization. Logically speaking, Kirigakure should also have it, especially the Kirigakure Anbu. Chapter 83, Heartless Beauty. The Anbu do have it, but do you think that technique can really control them? Terumi turned around, looked deeply at Rokuze, and continued, more importantly, that technique cannot control people's hearts. If they really want to turn against each other, there are countless ways to avoid it. Hearing this, Rokuze's face suddenly became very serious. Terumi was the 5th generation Mizukage in her previous life. She naturally knew all the techniques such as the curse seals used by the Ando to control others, but the current 3rd generation also knew it. It is naturally impossible to really control the people in front of you using the techniques of the Hidden Mist Village. Not only that, the human heart is the most difficult thing to figure out, and it can almost be said that it is impossible to control it at all. To this day, the only thing he has heard of that can forcibly distort the will of others is Uchiha Shizuka Tamatsukami, the ultimate illusion. On this basis, if others are determined to rebel, any curse seal technique is meaningless, and there are too many ways to avoid them. For example, Uchiha Obito once used Kakashi's Reikiri to destroy the control spell placed on his heart. Therefore, when ordinary people use spells to control others, they will also add special brainwashing teachings to ensure that they will not rebel. He thought things were too simple. As he was talking, the mist ninja who tried to break out had been dealt with, and only 2 ninja sword users and a few scattered jonin were still struggling. However, as their companions decreased, the pressure exerted by Terumi's side became more and more concentrated, and the few remaining people felt it was getting harder and harder to hold on. Damn it. Biwajuzo cursed angrily as he forced back the few people who rushed over with a sword. The fierce battle consumed a lot of his physical strength, and even swinging the big sword in his hand felt a little strenuous. However, at this moment, the ninjutsu type ninjas surrounding him took the opportunity to launch a spell to sneak attack. Water style water whip, water style water whip. Biwajuzo had no way to avoid it, and he had no time to change his moves. He was immediately entangled by the water whips shot out by more than a dozen people. Damn it. He shouted angrily, concentrating all his strength to explode, trying to break the water whip. Unfortunately, with more than a dozen people attacking him at the same time, he couldn't break free, even when he was at his best, not to mention that his chakra was consumed. As expected, he only broke 3 water whips and was powerless. On this battlefield, if he couldn't break free in time, the outcome would be doomed. The many mist ninjas who had just been forced to retreat rushed forward and directly stabbed their weapons into the body of the immobile Biwajuzo. In order to avoid the possible counter-attack of a ninja swordsman before his death, everyone did not linger and retreated very cautiously after a successful attack. Without their support, Biwajuzo, who was covered in blood, could no longer stand up and immediately collapsed to the ground. I'm not willing to accept this. He finally looked at everyone, spitting blood from his mouth, and swallowed his last breath in grief and anger. What a pity. A ninja swordsman is gone. Liuze below the valley couldn't help but sigh when he saw this. Seriously speaking, Biwajuzo's strength is not weak. Although they can't compare to those cage level strongmen, at least they can fight a few moves, and will never be killed easily. But even such a strong man, even if he can fight 10 people head on, can't fight 100 people head on. Because 2 fists can't beat 4 hands. No matter how strong they are, facing the continuous attack launched by the enemy with the advantage of numbers, they will eventually have a time when they can't deal with it in time. At this time, the shortcomings of ninjas' powerful attacks, but weak defense are undoubtedly revealed. Without any powerful moves, a small Kune can easily kill them. Therefore, when facing group battles, the ninja's own defense ability becomes the key. For example, the 3rd generation Reikage once fought against 10,000 people and finally died of exhaustion. With the lightning chakra mode, he has a strong defense ability, so even when facing group battles, he doesn't worry about the risk of mistakes. Because even if he makes a mistake, the enemy can't break his defense and can't do anything to him. Another example is Uchiha Madara during the 4th Ninja World War in the previous life. When he first appeared, he showed extraordinary fighting ability and could easily kill most ninjas. However, facing the joint attack of Naruto, Inoki and others, he was still a little overwhelmed. If it weren't for the defense of Susanoo, if it weren't for the terrible ability of Reincarnation Eye to absorb spells, he would have died countless times. Now, seeing the end of Biwajuzo, Liuze has made up his mind to prepare a powerful defensive spell for himself in the future. Although his bone spurs can provide some defense, this kind of defense has great flaws and cannot be expected too much. What he wants is a perfect defense similar to chakra mode. Hearing Liu's sigh, Terumi Mei also sighed. It's a pity that I can't use it. This batch of ninja swordsmen are all from the 3rd generation, and no one is willing to be loyal to her so far. Today's killing is just the beginning, and it will not end. At this time, with the fall of Biwajuzo, there are only a few people left on the battlefield. Even others can only defend themselves, and are in danger. Seeing this, Amakusa Raigen immediately waved his sword to force back several people around him, and then hurriedly distanced himself. Wait a minute, I have something to say, he shouted loudly while panting. Hearing this, the besiegers also subconsciously stopped and looked at King, who was in charge of the command behind them. As a confidant of Terumi, King had been given the responsibility of commanding this ambush mission early on. What do you want to say? King asked curiously. I'm willing to surrender and serve the 5th generation. Amakusa Raigen hesitated and said. Oh. Hearing this, King was a little undecided. Seeing this, the few people who were still struggling to resist also shouted loudly. I'm willing to surrender too. I'm willing to. For a moment, everyone stopped fighting spontaneously. No one wants to die, especially when they find that there is still a chance of survival. King thought for a moment and said seriously, I'm sorry, I can't give you an answer right away. I have to go back and ask Lady Terumi Mei about her attitude on this matter. It's okay, I can wait. Amakusa Ryugen breathed a sigh of relief and threw the flounder in his hand, indicating that he had completely given up resistance. But at this moment, a cold female voice came from the valley below. I'm sorry, I refuse your offer of service. Kill me. Hearing this, the people above the valley looked in the direction of the voice, but saw a familiar figure standing quietly in the direction of the valley exit. Chapter 84, Leaving Separately. It's Lady Terumi Mei. Many Miss Ninjas were very excited. Unexpectedly, Terumi Mei also came here. At this time, seeing that his superior had made a clear statement, King also understood what he should do. Kill without mercy. Many Miss Ninjas immediately cast spells together to continue the attack. Water style, water whip, water style, water whip. In an instant, dozens of water whips took shape and shot towards Amakusa Raigen from different angles. Damn it. Amakusa Raigen was furious. With his agile body, he dodged the restraints of several water whips and picked up the flounder he had just thrown away. But before he could stand firmly, a water whip had been tied to his body. Just one water whip could not completely trap him, but it was this water whip that pulled his movements and stagnated. Other whips followed closely, making it impossible for him to avoid them. Swish, swish, swish. But in the blink of an eye, he was tied up by dozens of water whips and could not move. Seeing this, several bamboo ninjas who were good at close combat seized the opportunity and rushed up, aiming the sharp bone spurs in their palms at the fragile neck of Amakusa Raigen. No. Then, amid the terrified screams of the ninja swordsman, several bamboo ninjas instantly pierced his neck with bone spurs. With the death of the last ninja swordsman who was in charge of the team, the remaining Miss Ninjas who were still struggling also completely lost their fighting spirit and were killed one after another. At this point, this small-scale mist-hidden village civil war jointly fought by Rokuze and Terumi Mei was completely over. With nearly 400 people lost at one time, including 2 ninja swordsmen, the conservatives suffered a big blow this time. Standing on the top of the valley, looking at the piles of corpses in the valley below, Rokuze sighed. It's really big, but it's still not that easy to really defeat them. Terumi Mei standing next to him shook her head. How are the Wind Clan and the Snow Clan? They seem to be a little too quiet recently. Liuze asked seriously. The 2 bloodline limit families were like them. They had rebelled in Kirigakure in their previous lives. Therefore, Liuze paid special attention to them this time. Although the Taketori clan had arranged some intelligence personnel to investigate the movements of the 2 clans, the results were minimal, and they did not find much useful information. In comparison, the reformists to which Terumi belongs are obviously stronger than their Taketori clan. In addition, they are already in Kirigakure, so it is more convenient for them to investigate than them. I think they should know more. Not very optimistic. Terumi shook her head and whispered, recently, we found that they seem to have some contact with Kumogakure and Konoha. I don't know what they are planning. What about the Hashigaki clan and the Hazuki clan? Do they have any new movements? Eliuze continued to ask. They? Speaking of these two tribes, Terumi sighed helplessly and then said, I sent people to contact them, hoping to get their support. But their attitude is very vague, neither supporting nor opposing. I feel that they want to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight, ready to reap the benefits of the fishermen. That's really a bit troublesome. Eliuze also sighed. At this time, King led people over. Sir, the battlefield has been cleaned up. He lowered his head and said to Terumi, what are our casualties? Terumi asked immediately with concern. 62 deaths and more than 200 injuries. King replied seriously. 62 deaths? Terumi sighed lightly and then said, after returning, we must do a good job of comforting the dead. As for the injured, we must arrange for treatment in time and not delay. Yes. King responded and then stood aside without saying anything. Eliuze also looked at Taketori Shinsuke, who had returned from cleaning up the battlefield, and asked, how are our casualties? No one died, but dozens of people were seriously injured. They will probably have to rest for a while. Taketori Shinsuke replied immediately. Not bad, not bad. Eliuze nodded, secretly relieved. After the previous war with Konoha, their clan suffered a lot of losses, and now every member of the clan seems particularly precious. As long as no one dies, it's better than anything else. Then, he looked at Terumi next to him, and said with a smile, since everything is over, let's say goodbye. Look forward to our next cooperation. Don't worry, it shouldn't be too long. Terumi nodded. This time the conservatives suffered a major blow, and the situation in Kirigakure is bound to be turbulent. The conflict between the two sides will become more and more intense, and the opportunities for mutual cooperation will naturally increase. Well, see you next time. Waving goodbye, Eliuze immediately took a group of clansmen on the road back to the village again. At the same time, on a cliff in the distance, Maingetsu Kizuki slowly put away his telescope and said to himself, what a pity. I thought there would be a fierce fight and both sides would be hurt. I didn't expect that Terumi was already prepared. After saying that, he couldn't help but sighed. A confidant next to him said immediately, in fact, no matter what the result is, it is a good thing for us. If the young clan leader wants to ascend to the position of Mizukage, whether it is the reformist faction, where Terumi belongs, or the conservative faction, where the current third Mizukage belongs, they will be your enemies. So, no matter who wins or loses, the power of one side will be weakened, reducing the obstacles in your future. That's true. Maingetsu Kizuki nodded and took out a scroll. Then, he put the scroll on the ground and opened it, and then slowly formed a set of hand seals to condense chakra in his hands. Spirit summoning technique. As he pressed his right hand on the open scroll, he injected chakra into it, and then a white smoke rose. When the smoke cleared, the broken sword, beheading sword, and the double swords flatfish appeared on the scroll. With the help of the ninja sword contract scroll mastered by the Hazuki family, he summoned the two ownerless ninja swords. Okay, let's go. After solemnly sealing the ninja swords in the scroll, Hazuki Manai led his subordinates to leave the mountain. At the same time, Terumi's party, who had not left the valley, also discovered the sudden disappearance of the two ninja swords. Oh no, Lord Terumi, the two ninja swords suddenly disappeared. The guard immediately came to report. Suddenly disappeared? Terumi was a little surprised, but she soon realized that she should have been summoned by the Hazuki family using the ninja sword contract scroll. That was the legacy left by the second generation Mizukage to the Hazuki family, allowing them to master the contract scroll of 7 ninja swords. Therefore, when the ninja swords were ownerless, the Hazuki family had the ability to freely summon the ninja swords for use. As soon as they finished the battle, the Kazuna family immediately summoned 2 ninja swords. This was obviously not a coincidence. The other party was probably nearby. Chapter 85, Trespassing into the Water Country. There's no need to pursue the matter of the ninja sword. Let everyone be alert and return to the Hidden Mist village immediately. In order to prevent things from changing, Terumi immediately issued an order to retreat. She was very worried that after the Kizuna family knew what was happening here, they would tell the Hidden Mist village, thereby attracting conservative reinforcement. Yes. The messenger left and passed on the order, and all the mist ninjas began to set off to return to the Hidden Mist village. For the sake of safety, to prevent running into possible conservative reinforcement, Meditarumi even deliberately led them around in a big circle and changed direction. However, her worries were not unnecessary. Not long after they left, another ninja force of more than 700 people arrived here under the leadership of Zigguish and Pufferghost. Fortunately, she led people to change the direction to go back, otherwise they would have really run into them halfway. Damn. Looking at the messy traces of battle in the valley, Pufferghost knew that he was late. What are you going to do next, old ghost? Kirishima Kashimaru asked slowly, while carrying the sewing needle. We can't let them get away with it. The pufferfish demon was furious and immediately issued a pursuit order. Unfortunately, they were destined to be unable to catch up. At the same time, at a seaport at the edge of the land of water, a ship docked, and two thin figures walked down. Kakashi, you shouldn't have followed. Wrapped in a huge cloak, Uchiha Obito covered half of his face, and said to his friend beside him, I know. Hatake Kakashi, who was also wrapped in a huge cloak, nodded and said, but I really don't feel at ease leaving you alone, and I don't want to see you fall into the abyss of despair again because of Lin. As he said that, he took a serious look at his friend, and happened to meet the only remaining single eye. Obito immediately fell silent, as if recalling a desperate night in his previous life. Kakashi pierced Lin's chest with the thunder in his right hand. That day, his world completely collapsed. He turned his head, avoiding Kakashi's sight, and sighed, don't worry, I won't mess around this time. Okay. Kakashi secretly breathed a sigh of relief, and then asked, after we rescue Lin, what are you going to do? Maybe I will go back to the Uchiha clan to confess my sins. Obito replied with a wry smile. In his previous life, it was Uchiha Itachi who joined him to slaughter his own clan. Of course, Uchiha Itachi only killed his parents, and most of the others were killed by him. He has always felt deeply guilty about his clan members, especially now that he has been reborn. He doesn't even know how to face his clan members. If he hadn't been worried about Lin still being in the hands of the Hidden Mist village, he would have gone back to confess his sins long ago. Kakashi, who also knew about this, didn't know what to say. Then, he changed the subject and said, where is Uchiha Madara? I heard that guy has taken the Uchiha clan away from Konoha. Do you know what he is planning this time? In his previous life, Obito created a crisis in the ninja world, but he was also bewitched by Madara. The man who was like a god was the key to everything. He was eager to understand the man's current attitude. I don't know. Obito shook his head and sighed. When I awakened my memories of my past life, I was already in his lair. However, this time he didn't ask me to do anything. After stitching my body together, he took the initiative to let me go. He was originally worried about how to escape from the hands of that terrifying strongman, but who would have thought that the other party would let him go openly? Then do you think he will continue to implement the so-called Eye of the Moon plan? Kakashi asked seriously. I'm afraid not. Obito waved his hand and said seriously, the Eye of the Moon plan is a trap. A person as arrogant as him will never allow himself to step into it again. However, you have also seen the powerful ability of the Ten Tails. Even if he will no longer continue to implement the Eye of the Moon plan, if he really wants to do something, he will probably try to revive the Ten Tails again, and take the power of the Ten Tails into his own hands. I agree with this. Kakashi nodded. He had already seen the fear of the Ten Tails Jinchuriki. Once such power appeared again, others would be unable to resist it. If he used that power to achieve his own goals, he would be unstoppable. So, this time you must keep an eye on the Nine Tails Jinchuriki in the village. Don't let him take advantage of the opportunity. Obito looked at his friend seriously. At this time, Obito suddenly remembered that the current Nine Tails Jinchuriki was not Uzumaki Naruto, but his master's wife Uzumaki Kushina, the woman who became the victim of his revenge on Konoha. Not only his master's wife Kushina, but even his teacher Nemake's Minato died that day because of his revenge. He also felt deeply guilty about these two. Hearing the change in Obito's tone, Kakashi guessed his friend's thoughts and whispered, when you go back this time, apologize to the teacher and the master's wife. No, I'm not qualified to apologize to them, and I don't even have the face to stand in front of them again. Looking at his friend, tears immediately flowed from Obito's one eye. Kakashi fell silent, not knowing what else to say, so he could only lower his head and continue on his way. For a moment, only the rustling footsteps of two people were left on the path. On the other side, Elias and his fellow tribesmen finally returned to their village safely. At this time, many tribesmen were already looking out at the entrance of the village. Seeing them return, they immediately cheered excitedly. Lord Elias and the others are back. They are back. Ever since they found out that a large number of people in the village had been mobilized, they were extremely nervous. Now that everyone has returned safely, they can finally breathe a sigh of relief. Okay, everyone go down and do your own things. Don't gather here and waste time. Elias smiled and sent everyone away. When all the tribesmen had dispersed and only a few original guards were left, one of them came out and handed a scroll to him. Lord, this is our pension, the guard said with his head down. Elias did not reach out to take it and then ordered, please send it directly to the assistant of the fourth elder. I think he has been waiting for this money anxiously these days. Yes. The guards responded and disappeared on the spot. Elias then said to the remaining few people, we have returned to the village. It is safe now. You all should go back and have a good rest. When they surrounded and annihilated the troops led by the two ninja swordsmen, they did not spend much effort because of their large numbers and terrain advantages. However, when they came out of the Mizukage building and arrived at the gate of the Hidden Mist village, many guards fought hard to send him safely. Now, they should have a good rest. Yes. Several people responded and then turned around and left. Chapter 86, The Heart of Three Generations. In the following time, Elias leisurely trained in the village, slowly waiting for the changes in the Kirigakure village. As the news that the two ninja swordsmen led their teams to be ambushed and wiped out spread in the Kirigakure village and further fermented, the contradiction between the conservatives and the reformists became more and more acute. However, the leaders of both sides were not sure of victory, so they seemed very restrained and did not dare to start a full-scale war easily. But the ninjas at the bottom were constantly rubbing against each other, and some fresh corpses could be found in the dark alleys every day. Soon, the third generation Mizukage convened the top leaders to start a new round of parliament. During this period, I have been thinking about one thing. Sitting in the main seat, the third generation glanced at everyone and said seriously, I'm thinking about the future of Kirigakure. I'm reflecting on whether everything we are insisting on now is correct. Hearing this, many higher level people present suddenly changed their faces. Third generation, what do you mean by this? The head of the Anbu frowned. Before he could continue, the third generation raised his hand to stop him and said to himself, so, I privately asked many young people what they saw and what the future would look like after the reform. As a result, their answers surprised me. After the reform of that little girl, Kirigakure has a new look, becoming richer and stronger. Everyone lives and works in peace and contentment, no longer as conflicted and offensive as before. At this point, he couldn't help but smile. Third generation, are you ready to give up our traditions and surrender to that little girl? The finance minister's face was extremely ugly. The so-called protection of tradition is actually just an excuse for them. Everyone sitting here now is a vested interest in the old order and old traditions. Once reformed, they will face a comprehensive reshuffle, and these vested interests will naturally lose their current interests. Therefore, they are unwilling to reform, and they are unwilling to see Meditarumi come to power. As for whether Kirigakure is good or not, no one will care about that. After all, human nature is selfish. Feeling the change in the attitude of the third generation, everyone present cast a solemn look at the third generation Mizukage. Then, under the gaze of all the senior officials, the third generation slowly uttered a sentence. I have decided to nominate Meditarumi as the fourth generation Mizukage and officially start the reform process of Kirigakure. As soon as these words came out, everyone present was shocked. Old man, are you crazy? Do you know what you are talking about? No, I don't agree. Everyone was vehemently opposed, and no one agreed. Having anticipated this outcome, the third generation narrowed his eyes and said firmly, this matter is settled. Later, I will send someone to the Terumi clan's base to discuss the appointment of the 4th generation Mizukage with Terumi Mei. Please consider the overall situation, and do not disregard personal gain. Only if we can resolve the problem peacefully with the reformists, can the entire Kirigakure truly settle down, and open a new chapter. Nowadays, the two most powerful forces in the entire Kirigakure are the conservatives he belongs to and the reformists led by Terumi Mei. Together, they account for nearly 70% of the power of the entire Kirigakure. The remaining 30% is divided among the Wind Clan, the Snow Clan, the Hashigaki Clan, and the Hazuki Clan. Although it seems that there are not a lot of people, in fact, they have their own thoughts, and are not unified. Once the conservatives and the reformists are united, the remaining people will naturally have no room for trouble, and can only obey obediently. But once the two sides start fighting, and the situation gets out of control, Kirigakure will be completely finished. As the Mizukage, he represented the interests of the conservatives, but he also represented the entire Kirigakure, so he naturally did not want to see such a result. No, I don't agree. I don't agree either. Faced with the tough attitude of the 3rd generation, everyone became more and more excited and objected, but the 3rd generation simply ignored them and turned to walk out of the meeting room. But just as he stepped out of the door of the meeting room, a strange sound suddenly fell into his ears, like someone plucking a taut string. Clang. Then, an inexplicable sense of crisis shrank from all around. Swish. When the 3rd generation came to his senses, he and the two guards around him were already covered with a layer of thin steel wire, as if they would be torn into pieces as soon as they moved a little. Stitches? He recognized it at a glance. It was the steel wire of the long sword Stitches. Only the steel wire of that ninja sword could give him such a sharp feeling. Then, Kurizen Kishimaru, holding the long sword sewing needle, walked out from the shadow of the corridor outside along with several other ninja swordsmen. What do you mean by this? Are you trying to rebel? The 3rd generation angrily scolded the ninja swordsman. Sorry, my dear 3rd generation, we also oppose your decision. The leading pufferfish ghost sneered and said, you are already old and confused, and you are not suitable to continue to serve as the Mizukage, so we decided to send you to see the previous Mizukage in advance. As he spoke, he snapped his fingers, signaling his companions to take action. Kurizen Kishimaru understood what he meant, and immediately hooked the steel wire at the end of the sewing needle, and then began to retract it. Swish. The sharp steel wire instantly cut the 3rd generation Mizukage and the two guards beside him into pieces. The two guards were undoubtedly killed instantly, but the 3rd generation's mutilated body turned into a pool of clear water, and it was obvious that he had escaped. Water clone. Several people were stunned for a moment, and immediately drew out their ninja swords to take a defensive posture, and quickly searched around for the figure of the 3rd generation. The opponent must have used the water clone to replace the original body before being caught by the wire, so he avoided the fatal blow in time. Soon, a figure with a blue hat with the word water appeared on the ceiling. Water style, great waterfall technique using the clone to delay time. The 3rd generation has already completed his technique. He took a deep breath, and then exhaled a huge stream of water, turning into a mighty waterfall, and rushing towards the ninja sword users who were blocking the way in front. After all, several ninja sword users were a beat slower, and they were immediately swept away by the surging waterfall, before they could defend themselves. However, they were not easy to deal with, and they quickly grabbed the building next to them, and regained their footing. The watermelon mountain puffer demon holding the big sword, Samehuda swung the big sword in his hand and split the surging torrent in front of him. Then, Samehuda activated his chakra absorbing ability, and swallowed the waterfall into the blade. A large vortex formed around the blade, attracting the rushing waterfall. However, as the Mizukage, the 3rd Hokage knew the strength of his subordinates, so he did not expect that this great waterfall technique would be able to deal with them. He just wanted to use this move to create a chance for himself to escape. Water style, instant water. While the waterfall had not been completely absorbed by Samehuda, he immediately made a hand seal, and then the whole person disappeared into the water. Chapter 87, Death of 3 Generations. Seeing that the Sander was about to rush out of the Mizukage building with the power of the waterfall, a light blue barrier suddenly rose in front of him. Bang! The Sander had no time to dodge, and hit it head on. He was dizzy and had to stop. He then shook his head hard and calmed down. Only then did he see clearly that it was a huge barrier covering the entire Mizukage building. Blue array. Recognizing the barrier in front of him, the Sanda took a breath of cold air. It was one of the top barriers in all the records of Kirigakure. It was presided over by 8 elite jonin, and even the tailed beasts could be firmly trapped and could not escape easily. Then, he saw that a group of senior officials, including the head of the Anbu, slowly walked out of the conference room. Among them were 8 elite jonin. Each of them maintained a fixed seal posture and silently transformed chakra into a beam of light and injected it into the barrier above their heads. Until then, he finally understood that it was them who set up this barrier. They actually joined forces with several ninja swordsmen to kill him, the Mizukage. Why are the so-called rights so important? You are even willing to destroy Kirigakure to maintain them. The third generation angrily questioned the senior officials. Yes. The head of the Anbu nodded and said seriously, we are not as conscious as you. We are just a group of vulgar people who are greedy for rights. If you want to deprive us of our rights, it is better to destroy Kirigakure and rebuild a village under our leadership. That's right. After absorbing the last stream of water on the ground, the pufferfish ghost carried Samehuda on his shoulders and sneered. Originally, we wanted you to be the Mizukage for a while longer, but since you are so ungrateful, we can only let you go to hell in advance. As he said that, he had already used the instant body technique to burst out at an extremely fast speed, sprinted to the third generation, and chopped the Samehuda in his hand with force. However, the third generation is the Mizukage after all. He also stepped on the corpses of countless competitors step by step to sit in that position. His own strength cannot be questioned. Even though he was old and weak now, he was not comparable to ordinary people. He nimbly dodged the blow of the puffer ghost and threw an explosive kunai in the opposite hand. Boom. There was a loud noise, and the puffer ghost was immediately blown away by the explosion of the detonating talisman. However, he blocked the impact of the explosion with the huge and hard blade of Samehuda in time, and he himself was not injured. However, before the Sanda could catch his breath, Tasuga no Ito and Murashige Shinpachi had already come behind him. Go to hell. Murashige Shinpachi aimed at the upper body of the Sanda, and Tasuga no Ito aimed at the lower body of the Sanda. The two of them swung their ninja swords at the same time. The Sanda did not waste time dodging, and just stood there calmly and quickly flipped his fingers to make seals. Water style, water array wall. Finally, when the two ninja swords were about to fall on him, a surging torrent rose from his feet, pushing the two ninja swords upwards, and the two ninja sword users were not spared, rising into the sky with the torrent. However, their last companion took this opportunity to complete his arrangement. Longsword ninja technique, earth spider sewing. He hooked the steel wire at the end of the sewing needle, and countless crisscrossing steel wires rose from the ground immediately, hanging 1 foot above the ground like a huge spider web. Die. As he retracted the steel wire at the end of the sewing needle, the spacing between the steel wires spread on the ground also shrank rapidly, and the space between the nets, that was originally 1 meter square, was instantly reduced to only about 1 foot. In the middle of the wire mesh, the protruding stones and wooden stakes were instantly strangled into several sections by the sharp steel wire. It's bad. Noticing the abnormality under his feet, the third generation was shocked. However, there was no chakra fluctuation on the steel wire at all. In addition, it was extremely thin, and his water barrier blocked his sight. By the time he found that the steel wire was shrinking, it was too late. Swish. On the ground, the stones and wooden stakes that originally protruded from the middle of the steel wire mesh were instantly cut into 2 pieces by the shrinking steel mesh. The same thing happened to the legs of the third generation that were originally standing on the ground, facing the thin steel wire. Even if there was a surging water barrier protecting his feet, it still couldn't stop it at all. With his legs cut off, the third generation couldn't help but scream in pain, and he could no longer maintain the water barrier that protected him. Seeing that, the circular water curtain stopped rising, and then fell back to the ground, turning into an ordinary pool of clear water. Not only that, with his legs cut off, the third generation could not stand up, and saw the upper body fall down in front of him. However, there was still a deadly steel wire hanging on the ground. Swish. The third generation fell head first, His scream stopped abruptly, and his whole body was cut into 8 pieces by the crisscrossing wire mesh, and he died tragically on the spot. So far, the hard-working third-generation Mizukage has completely ended his life. Okay, put away your wires, don't hurt your own people. The pufferfish ghost signaled to Kurizen Kishimaru, who was not far away. Even he was unwilling to be in the dangerous wire mesh. Kurizen Kishimaru didn't say much, and silently retracted the wires, leaving only the body and flesh of the third generation. Although this old guy is dead, what should we do next? If the people below know that we killed the third generation, I'm afraid the power of the entire conservative faction will fall apart. Miri Shinpochi walked over, took a look at the pile of meat and frowned. In any case, the third generation is the leader of their conservative faction after all. Although they killed the third generation with the support of other senior leaders, they did not get the consent of everyone in the faction. You know, within their conservative faction, there are quite a few people who are directly loyal to the Mizukage. If the truth of the death of the third generation is exposed, the result can be imagined. What are you afraid of? Just release the news that it was Meditarumi who sent someone to assassinate the third generation, and this matter can be perfectly resolved. The head of the Anbu said carelessly. The third generation is not unable to die, but he cannot die in their hands. As long as the people below believe that it was Meditarumi who killed the third generation, all the spearheads will inevitably point to Meditarumi. At that time, even if there are still people in their group who have the same idea as the third generation, they can no longer resolve the contradictions between the two sides, and can only follow everyone to the end. That's right, just disguise it, and then issue a notice to the people below, saying that Meditarumi sent someone to assassinate the third generation, and this matter will be perfectly resolved. The pufferfish ghost showed a mouthful of sharp teeth, and the smile on his face was extremely proud. Not everyone can get close to the third generation. As long as these high-level people are of the same caliber, no one below will doubt it at all. Well, this is a good idea. The other ninja swordsmen nodded one after another. In this way, the news of the death of the third generation Mizukage was spread, after being artificially modified. Chapter 88, Turbulent Mist. Soon, the entire Kirigakure learned about the death of the third generation. The already tense situation was becoming unstable. In particular, the conservatives and the reformists no longer concealed their true intentions, and began to fight openly in the Kirigakure. Of course, the battle was mainly provoked by the conservatives, and the ignorant Kirigakure ninjas at the bottom wanted to avenge the third generation in grief and anger. Fortunately, the top leaders of both sides tried their best to restrain themselves, so it did not evolve into a full-scale war. However, compared with the sporadic small conflicts before, the intensity of the conflict at this moment has completely risen by several levels. In just one day, more than 100 people were killed and injured on both sides. Not only that, because they were all in the Kirigakure, the entire Kirigakure was their battlefield, and the ordinary villagers living in the Kirigakure naturally became innocent victims of the conflict between the two sides, with countless deaths and injuries. For a while, the entire Kirigakure was in a panic. Many people have keenly realized that this is just the beginning, and there are more dangers behind, so they immediately packed up and began to move to other nearby towns. Liuze was also shocked to receive such news. I didn't expect that the third generation would die at this time. But, sir, do you really believe that the third generation was assassinated by Meditarumi? Taketori Shinsuke knelt beside him and frowned and asked. Of course I don't believe it. Rokuze shook his head and said seriously, according to the current situation, killing the third generation does not have much practical significance for the reformists. It will only make the situation more tense and more difficult to deal with, just like what you see now. Indeed. Taketori Shinsuke nodded and responded. Once the third generation died, the situation in the entire Kirigakure was almost out of control and almost on the verge of collapse. Rokuze continued, and there is one more important point. If it was really Meditarumi who took action, why were they so careless and so easily found out so quickly? I feel that it is more like someone deliberately framed them to provoke conflicts between conservatives and reformists and completely disrupt the situation in Kirigakure. Since you said that, sir, I also feel that this is very likely the case. Taketori Shinsuke immediately agreed. What a pity. Liuze sighed lightly, then stood up, walked to the courtyard, looked in the direction of Kirigakure, and said in a complicated way, with the death of the third generation, the symbol of Kirigakure's supreme leader, the situation in Kirigakure is becoming more and more tense. Even the population that maintains the foundation of a ninja village has begun to lose a lot of people. The entire Kirigakure is on the verge of collapse. I just don't know who will be the one to make the final blow to destroy Kirigakure. It can be predicted that under this situation, if there are some slightly more violent turmoil, Kirigakure will inevitably collapse completely. Who knows? Taketori Shinsuke shook his head and came up with a document, whispering, but these have nothing to do with us. Recently, our people have found some suspicious people in the nearby town. Please take a look. As he said, he held the document with both hands and handed it over. Oh, after investigating for so long, have you finally gained anything? With a hint of expectation, Liuze took the document. He sent people to investigate the whereabouts of Yakushi Kabuto early in the morning. If he can really find the target from it this time, it would be very lucky. He immediately opened it and saw that it contained simple investigation reports with head portraits attached. After flipping through 7 of them, Liuze did not see any familiar targets. However, when he flipped through the 8th one, his pupils shrank and his face became extremely serious. Noticing his change, Taketori Shinsuke said cautiously, "Sir, have you found the trace of that Kabuto Yakushi?" No. Rokuze shook his head slightly and said seriously, "I saw Hatake Kakashi." Hatake Kakashi? Taketori Shinsuke was stunned for a moment and quickly searched for relevant information in his mind and tentatively asked, "Is it the Kakashi who became famous in the Battle of Kanabi Bridge, the disciple of Golden Flash, and is known as the copy ninja?" "Yes, that's him." Rokuze pointed to the right side of the portrait in the photo in his hand and continued, "See his left eye that was deliberately covered? There is not a problem with the eye, but a Sharingan was transplanted. But because he is not of Uchiha blood, he cannot open and close a pupil technique of that eye freely, so he usually covers it up and does not want to attract too much attention. However, even so, he is just a genius with some fame. It is not worth your sir to be so serious, right?" Taketori Shinsuke asked in surprise. Although the Sharingan is powerful, in the eyes of the Taketori clan, it is just that powerful. Unless it is the main Gekkai Sharingan, they don't take it seriously at all. Yes, there are other reasons why I value him. Liuze looked serious and continued, "There is one thing you don't know. Hatake Kakashi was also the 6th Hokage of Konoha Ninja Village. And as a guiding jonin, among his subordinates, there were 2 powerful ninjas who later caused changes in the ninja world. Of course, those 2 guys haven't been born yet, so there's no need to mention them for the time being. But he also has a very important friend. His name is Uchiha Obito, who is also one of the culprits who later triggered the 4th Ninja World War. And the Sharingan on his body came from his good friend named Uchiha Obito. As for the fuse that Uchiha Obito triggered the 4th Ninja World War, it was because of a girl named Nohara Rin, who happened to be in the same team as the 2 of them. Now, the girl named Nohara Rin has been imprisoned by our Kirigakure. It was originally planned to use her to seal the 3 tails, and then bring her back to Konoha, and use the power of the tailed beast to destroy Konoha. However, before this plan could be implemented, everyone awakened their memories of their past lives. The war was hastily stopped, and the plan was abandoned. If I'm not mistaken, Hatake Kakashi came to Kirigakure to rescue Nohara Rin. But from what I know about Kakashi, he is not an adventurous and impulsive person. Especially since he was the 6th Hokage in his previous life, he should not have ventured into the Land of Water at this sensitive moment, when the war had just ended. So, there should be more than one person who came to Kirigakure this time. As he said this, Rokuze turned over the page of information belonging to Kakashi, revealing the page below. Sure enough, a familiar face also appeared on the photo on the page below, a young man with scars on half of his face. Uchiha Obito. Rokuze uttered the man's name with a serious face. No wonder Kakashi took such a big risk to enter the Land of Water. It turned out that Obito was also traveling with him. I think it was Obito, who was more impulsive, who advocated sneaking into the land of water to rescue Rin Nohara, and Kakashi was unable to stop him, so he had to follow. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89, Dao's Mysterious Traces. Here's Uchiha Obito. Seeing the photo on the file in Rokuze's hand, Taketori Shinsuke was quite surprised. In his eyes, it was just a silly looking young man. Yes, it's him. Rokuze nodded and said, remember to contact Meditarumi later and tell them the news of the arrival of these two people. As he said that, he turned the page again and continued to search for possible traces of Kabuto Yakushi. What about us? Do we not have to do anything for Hatake Kakashi? Taketori Shinsuke asked in confusion. Although there are conflicts with the Kirigakure village, as Kirigakure ninjas, they naturally do not want to let ninjas from other villages wander around their territory at will. Especially the identities of those two are very special. After reading the top file, Liuze turned the page again and said, let's find out the attitude of Meditarumi first. Uchiha Obito is fine. He did a lot of evil in his previous life. Even if we attack him, it shouldn't cause too strong a reaction from Konoha. But Hatake Kakashi is different. His teacher is the 4th generation Hokage in his previous life. He himself is the 6th generation Hokage in his previous life. Even the 7th generation Hokage in his previous life is his disciple. His identity is very special. If we attack him rashly, Konoha will not let it go. And with the current state of Kirigakure, it is absolutely not suitable to provoke such a powerful enemy of Konoha again. So, we must not act rashly. However, you can keep an eye on the whereabouts of those two people in private, so that we can change our minds at any time. Yes. Taketori Shinsuke nodded seriously. Not long after, Liuze flipped through the stack of investigation materials on the suspects in his hand. Unfortunately, apart from Hatake Kakashi and the two, he didn't see any other familiar faces. Could it be that Kabuto has already left the land of water? Rokuze couldn't help but frown. At this moment, seeing the corner of the photo of Kakashi and Obito revealed in the pile of information in his hand, he suddenly remembered another thing. Kakashi and Obito are not professional intelligence personnel, so they can't compare with Kabuto Yakushi, who has been trained as a spy since childhood in terms of special disguise ability. For Hatake Kakashi and others, the only means of disguise is the transformation technique. With the transformation technique, they can easily change into the appearance of other people to deceive others and achieve their own goals. But the transformation technique itself has its flaws. It needs chakra to maintain, and it will be beaten back to its original form if it is slightly hit. Moreover, it is possible to be detected by ninjas with more acute perceptions when it is maintained by the technique. Under normal circumstances, Kakashi and the others will not use the transformation technique casually. Therefore, they will be noticed by their own intelligence personnel with their original appearance. But as a more professional intelligence personnel, Kabuto Yakushi will naturally not use the transformation technique with many disadvantages. They would use human skin masks and more sophisticated Makupe techniques to disguise themselves, so as to achieve the purpose of long-term disguise, and there were almost no flaws. Based on this, if Kabuto Yakushi was really among these suspects, then he would definitely not be the original appearance in his memory. Realizing this, Liuze quickly flipped through the information of all the suspects again, and carefully read the intelligence descriptions recorded and fed back by the investigators. Soon, after repeated comparisons, Liuze noticed one of the boys named Zun. The other party was proficient in pharmacology and was good at using medical ninjutsu. He practiced medicine everywhere as a wandering ninja and left a good reputation in nearby towns. Liuze remembered that Kabuto Yakushi had also learned a set of advanced medical ninjutsu. Medical ninjas are not easy to train and are very precious. A wandering medical ninja is even more suspicious. Then, Liuze took out the information of Zion and handed it to Taketori Shinsuke beside him and instructed, let the people below focus on observing this guy. Remember to hide yourself carefully and don't be discovered. Once you find signs of him escaping, report it immediately and mobilize the people of the clan to arrest him with all their strength. Yes. Taketori Shinsuke nodded and asked, "Excuse me, sir, do you have any other instructions?" "No, that's all for now." Ryuze waved his hand to send him away. Taketori Shinsuke didn't say anything else, and then quietly turned around and left. Putting the rest of the information aside, Ryuze strode into the courtyard. He closed his eyes and silently mobilized chakra to promote the growth of the bones in his left arm. He saw the skin and flesh on his left shoulder wriggling rapidly, and then a piece of arm bone broke through the skin and flesh and grew out of the shoulder. Then, he opened his eyes and held the arm bone that emerged from his left shoulder with his right hand. With a light shout, he pulled out a 3-foot-long bone spear from his left shoulder. The bone spear is mainly divided into two parts. The front part is a bone spear transformed from a whole arm bone, and the back half is a handle transformed from a small piece of bone. With the special ability of the corpse bone vein, he firmly combined the two pieces of bones together to form a special bone spear weapon. This is also another physical skill he learned from Taketori Shinsuke after he came back from receiving the pension, the Tsubaki dance. It is very similar to the willow dance he learned at the beginning. This Tsubaki dance is also a physical skill that combines multiple continuous attacks. However, unlike the willow dance which needs to cooperate with the growth of bone spurs at any time to enhance the lethality, the Tsubaki dance emphasizes the use of the bone spear in his hand to fight the enemy, and uses the exquisite physical skills to suppress and defeat the enemy. This physical skill lacks the unexpected lethality of growing bone spurs at any time, but it is far stronger than the Tsubaki dance in terms of technique. Taketori Shinsuke divided it into 72 slow movements for him to learn slowly. After spending nearly half a day to memorize it completely, Ryuze began the long process of mastering it. Today, he can perform the 72 movements contained in this Tsubaki dance coherently. However, it is only able to perform it coherently. It takes a long time to perform the whole set of movements, and it is impossible to form effective lethality. It is no different from health gymnastics. Only when this set of movements can be performed smoothly in an extreme time, so fast that it is difficult for enemies of the same level to resist, or even unable to resist, can he truly master this move. However, with the foundation of willow dance, he believes that it should not take too much time for him to master this move. About half a month after the death of the third generation, the worsening situation of Kirigakure once again ushered in a new upheaval. The Wind Clan and the Snow Clan, which have remained silent since the war, have delivered a fatal blow to the precarious Kirigakure regime. The two clans suddenly issued a joint statement. They would withdraw from the Hidden Mist Village and no longer interfere in all the affairs of the Hidden Mist Village. Afterwards, they left with a group of clansmen and some of the Hidden Mist villagers who were willing to follow them in an extremely tough manner, and then stationed in the southwest corner of the central island. The conservatives and the reformists wanted to stop it, but they were afraid of each other and did not stop it. Faced with the betrayal of the two major bloodline limit families, the Hidden Mist Village was unable to stop it, and its authority was completely lost. It had already lost the ability to govern the Hidden Mist Village, and it was in name only. Chapter 90, Mist Hidden Destruction. Seeing the Wind Clan and the Snow Clan leave and take the initiative to jump out of the troubled Kirigakure village, the Hazuki clan and the Hashigaki clan also followed suit and issued a statement to leave Kirigakure. But unlike the Wind and Snow clan, the Hazuki and Hashigaki clan did not express their intention to leave Kirigakure, but just wanted to remain neutral and temporarily stay away from Kirigakure for their own safety. Although what they said sounded good, Ryuze could see at a glance that they wanted to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight, and then wait for an opportunity to act, and their plot was not small. But even though everyone could see through their little thoughts, the conservatives and the reformists had no extra power to stop the two clans. Just like letting the Wind and Snow clan leave, they had no way to deal with the departure of the Hazuki and Hashigaki clan. And with the departure of the four major families, there were only two forces left on the ground of the entire Kirigakure village, the reformists represented by Meitarumi and the conservatives of the Mizukichi. Just like two beasts in the arena, after losing any other possible threats, they only have each other in their eyes, and are about to start the final fight in this arena, called Mist Hidden Village. Unfortunately, humans are not beasts, but they have wisdom. In this environment, even if you win, it will only be a miserable victory. I don't know if the two sides have reached a tacit understanding. After weighing the pros and cons, both sides quietly withdrew from the mist-hidden village with their clansmen and villagers who are willing to follow them. At this point, the mist-hidden village has completely become an empty city, and the mist-hidden ninja village, one of the 5 major ninja villages, has officially been destroyed. When Ryuze, who was outside the mist-hidden village, received this news, he was simply overwhelmed. Although he also knew that the signs of division had appeared as early as when the situation in the mist-hidden village was divided, he still felt a little incredible when he really faced this situation. The mist-hidden village, one of the 5 major ninja villages, was split and destroyed. My lord, what should we do next? Do we really have to migrate to the southeast with Meditarumi and others? Taketori Shinsuke asked anxiously. When leaving Kirigakure, Meditarumi also sent an invitation to their Taketori clan. However, Kirigakure is now completely divided, which makes him feel hesitant and uneasy about his future life. Of course. Rokuze nodded and said with a smile, do you still want to stay here and starve? Don't forget, Kirigakure is gone, and the biggest source of supply we rely on for life will also be lost. As he said that, he gently patted Shinsuke on the shoulder. That's right. Without the supplies from Kirigakure, our lives will definitely become more difficult. Taketori Shinsuke suddenly realized. Not only that, Ryuze walked to the courtyard with his hands behind his back, looked up at the deep sky, and continued. Before, everyone was concentrated in one village. The distance was too close, and they were afraid of affecting the rear, so they were more restrained, and didn't really fight. But as they split up and left, they placed their rear in a safe area, so naturally they had no worries. This also means that they have lost their scruples, and will completely let go and kill. If we continue to stay here, without the care of Meditarumi, we may become the target of the hostile forces. So, we must leave with them. I see. Taketori Shinsuke nodded, and there was no more doubt in his heart. Ryuze then sent another message. Notify them. Let the tribe members prepare for migration immediately, and be ready to leave in an hour. For safety reasons, we must meet up with Meditarumi as soon as possible. The Taketori clan is very strong. Generally speaking, it refers to their individual combat capabilities. In terms of the overall strength of the family, they are actually ranked last among the major families in Kirigakure. Because, in addition to the power of the population of the clan, the overall power of the clan also includes the additional affiliated forces of foreign clans. After all, it is good to lean on a big tree for shade, so many scattered ordinary ninjas have attached themselves to the major clans and become affiliated forces. For example, based on her personal prestige, there are probably more than 10,000 people willing to follow her in the entire Kirigakure village. In addition to the family power of the Terumi clan itself, the number of ninjas that Terumi Medi can mobilize is at least more than 3,000. In comparison, the affiliated forces of the Taketori clan are negligible. The ninja forces that Rokuze can mobilize are mainly composed of the clan members, but the total number of clan members is no more than 1,000. Excluding the elderly, weak women and children, there are only about 500 people who can really fight. There are 2 main reasons for the weak affiliated forces of the Taketori clan. First, they have a perverse personality, and it is difficult for outsiders to get along with them. In this case, naturally no outsiders are willing to follow and serve. Second, they were expelled from the Kirigakure village, and their own lives are difficult, so naturally they can't provide much resources to support the affiliated forces. After all, followers did not come here to suffer, but to obtain better resources. It is precisely based on these 2 factors that the subordinate power of the Taketori clan is negligible. If only the power of the clan is considered, they are not afraid of any other clan at all, but if it is considered as a whole, they are naturally far behind. In the current chaotic situation, it is difficult for Ryuze to protect the safety of the clan members by relying on the power of the clan alone, so he must leave with Terumi Medi and others, and the sooner he reunites with them, the better. Yes, sir. Taketori Shinsuke responded, and then left to issue a notice. Soon, the news of the migration reached the ears of every clan member. In order to prevent panic, Liz did not announce the important news of the split of Kirigakure, so everyone had complaints about his sudden migration decision. However, for Liu's firm followers, they naturally carried out his orders meticulously. And with these followers taking the lead, the entire Taketori clan began to act, and other clan members who still had opinions could only follow suit. An hour later, Liu stood at the entrance of the village with a large bag of luggage on his back. Seeing that everyone was carrying large and small bags, Liu immediately said to Taketori Shinsuke next to him, "Don't let everyone carry luggage. Dispatch a ninja team and let other tribesmen help share the burden of luggage to ensure that they can move lightly and be ready to deal with any possible situation at any time." Yes. Taketori Shinsuke immediately left to make arrangements. Then, Liu jumped onto a pillar at the entrance of the village and said loudly to everyone, "I know that such a sudden migration decision has troubled everyone. But please believe me, everything I do is for everyone. One day, I will bring everyone back, not only back here, but also back to Kirigakure to restore the glory of the Taketori clan. Now, please believe me, follow me and move forward, and embark on a new journey." As soon as the voice fell, cheers and applause broke out from the audience. No one had any more objections. At this moment, the will of the Taketori clan was highly unified. "Let's go." With Liu's order, all the tribesmen walked out of the village and began a mighty migration. Chapter 91, Migration Journey. The news of the split of the Hidden Mist village soon spread throughout the ninja world. Whether it is the 4 major ninja villages or other small ninja forces, they have sent people to sneak into the Land of Water, trying to take advantage of the opportunity to get some benefits in the Land of Water. Unfortunately, the Land of Water is far overseas, composed of countless islands, and is not directly connected to the mainland. Such a geopolitical environment makes the neighboring Land of Fire and Land of Thunder feel very sorry, because they cannot take the opportunity to encroach on the territory of the Land of Water and maximize their benefits. As for those islands, they don't put them in their eyes at all. Spending a lot of effort to occupy some overseas isolated islands is simply meaningless to them. Especially far overseas, even defense is difficult, and occupying them is purely a burden to themselves. For them, as long as the Land of Water maintains such a chaotic situation, it is enough. A chaotic Land of Water will not pose any threat to them at all, and it can also reduce their defense pressure, so as to free out their hands to do other things. However, the fact that the 4 major countries look down on it does not mean that other small ninja forces look down on it. Especially for those small ninja forces like bandits, even if they can only occupy a small island, it is a huge progress for them. This means that they can have their own territory. Some people have even begun to fantasize that, while Kirigakure is divided and in turmoil, they can take the opportunity to gather refugees to develop the island, and then expand step by step, slowly build their own ninja village, and establish a new country on the sea. It is not impossible to even replace Kirigakure and annex the entire water country in the end. In this way, under the impetus of various forces, the situation in the water country has become more and more chaotic. On the other side, under the leadership of Liu, the Taketori clan is advancing rapidly in the southeast direction, preparing to join the reformist forces to which the retreating Terumi Mei belongs. After nearly half an hour of trekking, Taketori Shinsuke quickly came to Liu. "My lord, our pathfinders found someone fighting in front. Should we avoid them?" Taketori Shinsuke reported in a low voice. "Are there many of them? Have you found out who is fighting?" Liu asked as he walked with his luggage on his back. With his strength, he was naturally not qualified to be a regular combat reserve candidate, so he could only carry his luggage and share the pressure for the tribe as much as possible. Taketori Shinsuke thought for a while and replied, "According to the report from the front, the number of people fighting on both sides does not seem to be large, probably only about 30 people. However, the identities of the 2 warring parties have not been clarified yet. Since there are not many people on both sides, just crush them directly. There is no need to be afraid of them." Liu took 2 steps forward and added, "If there are people from Terumi, then help them. If not, then kill them all. Don't leave any alive. At present, they are migrating with their families, and the speed is not fast. In addition, there are some old, weak, women and children who have little combat power. Once they encounter enemies, it is difficult to take care of everyone. Therefore, if they don't take action, it's fine. Once they take action, they will definitely kill them all and leave no one alive. If one escapes and attracts more enemies, it will be bad. Liuze hopes to eliminate all dangers in the bud to ensure that the tribe can be transferred safely. After receiving his reply, Taketori Shinsuke immediately turned around and left to convey the order. About 10 minutes later, Taketori Shinsuke came back again, but with a lot more blood on his body and with a strange Miss Ninja. "Sir, everything is resolved," he reported to Rokuze excitedly. "It seems that you have encountered people from Terumi Mena's faction fighting the enemy." Rokuze immediately guessed, after taking a look at the strange Miss Ninja next to Taketori Shinsuke. According to what he said before, as long as all allies were not killed, the only friendly forces that could be led here now could be from the reformist faction. "Hello, Lord Rokuze." The man immediately saluted and then introduced himself. "My name is Matsumoto Taro, and I'm in charge of dealing with the enemies chasing the migration team under the order of Lord Terumi Mena. Thank you for the assistance of the Taketori clan, otherwise we might not know how many people would die this time." As he said that, he bowed to Rokuze again. "You're welcome." Liuze waved his hand and asked again, "However, with just such a small number of people, they dare to block your migration team. Isn't the enemy too arrogant? The reformists can mobilize at least nearly 3,000 ninjas, and the escort team must be strong. Just a few dozen people dare to come to block. They are simply impatient to live." "My lord, you misunderstood." The visitor smiled bitterly and explained immediately, "The main people who blocked our migration team this time are conservatives. However, they are also migrating, so they can't spare all their strength to attack us. They just sent some small troops to harass and destroy us from time to time. The ones we just dealt with were just accidentally intercepted and couldn't escape. There are more Miss Ninjas hiding around the migration team, like poisonous snakes hiding in the dark, coming out to bite from time to time. Although it won't be fatal, it's also very troublesome. So that's it." Liuze and Taketori Shinsuke suddenly realized. "Then how far are we from your migration team?" Liuze asked again. "If they can reunite as soon as possible, it will certainly increase the safety of all the tribesmen." The visitor glanced at the Taketori clan's team and said seriously, "Your total number is far less than ours, and your marching speed is also faster. I think we should be able to reunite in half an hour." It is not the fastest person who affects the speed of a team, but the slowest person in the team. Because they have to be taken care of, those who walk fast have to slow down and wait. Especially since not everyone in the team is a ninja, there are also quite a few ordinary people. Their mobility is naturally impossible to match that of a ninja. They have to rest every time they walk a certain distance, which also affects the speed of the entire team. This situation is more prominent on the side of the reformists with more people. Therefore, the migration team of the Taketori clan is faster than the migration team of the reformists. Half an hour. Not bad, not bad. Liuze nodded and asked, "What about Lady Terumi Mena? Where is she now?" Hearing him mention Terumi Mena, the man looked serious and said seriously, "Lady Terumi Mena led a main force of nearly 2,000 people to cover the rear and guard against the conservatives launching a surprise attack. Right now, we are seriously short of manpower to guard the migration team and maintain order. Lord Rokuze, please join the migration team in front and help maintain order and guard." "No problem. We will do our best to help." Liuze agreed. As long as he is not asked to send people to the front line for support, everything will be fine. Because, after the previous war with Konoha, the Taketori clan was also seriously injured. He didn't want to increase unnecessary casualties. Chapter 92, Migration and Reunion. After dealing with 3 small groups of ninjas who came to block them on the way, Liuze and his group finally caught up with the migration team of the reformists of Terumi's faction. Liuze immediately arranged for his clan members to follow behind and join them, and dispersed the 300 ninjas originally used for defense in the clan to cooperate with other guards in the migration team to patrol safety and maintain order. "Thank you very much for your help, everyone in the Taketori clan." King walked up quickly and thanked Liuze and his group with a smile. Glancing at the long migration team, Eliuse asked with a smile, "Excuse me, are you the AO Jonin in charge here?" "Not exactly." King smiled and waved his hand, patiently explaining, "Lady Terumi Mei ordered me and clan leader Terumi to be in charge together, to manage the migration of all personnel. However, that person is now at the front of the team. If you want to see him, you have to go to the front." "Forget it then." Eliuse smiled and said, "I still have clan members to take care of, so it's inconvenient to leave casually. You also know that they are not easy to get along with. If there is any conflict with your migration team, it will not end well." As he said that, he signaled a glance at his own clan members. Perhaps they heard what he said, and several people beside him smiled and turned their heads away, not daring to look him in the eye. King smiled bitterly and nodded when he saw it. "Indeed, if you are not here, others can't control them at all. Oh, by the way, have we decided on the destination for this migration?" Eliuse asked curiously. Logically speaking, it is impossible that Lady Terumi, who brought so many people, did not have a clear goal. Yes. King nodded, and then took a map from a nearby Miss Ninja. Then, he quickly unfolded the map, revealing a sea chart full of islands. Eliuse recognized it at a glance. It was a map of the Land of Water, and the largest island in the center of the map was the central island, where they were now based. King then pointed to the map and explained, "The two tribes of Fengsu retreated to the southwest, and the Hazuki retreated to the northeast. Our original position in the village was southeast, so we moved directly to the southeast, and planned to find a big city along the way to settle temporarily. As for the remaining conservatives, they only have the northwest to retreat to. In this way, we will form a four-legged tripod on the central island. It seems that you are going to divide the entire Land of Water." Eliuse saw what Lady Terumi was planning at a glance. Since it is impossible to deal with the opponent in a short time, the only choice is to protect yourself first, then draw resources from the Land of Water to grow stronger, and then wait for an opportunity to swallow up the opponent. Hearing this, King smiled and did not respond. "But, how should we explain to the daimyo? He will not let us grow so wildly." Eliuse looked at King seriously and asked. "For the country, the ninja village is just a simple military organization. The daimyo is the nominal master of the entire country, and ninjas do not engage in production. Even if there are some ordinary people in the ninja village engaged in production activities, it is still far from enough to support the entire ninja village. Therefore, all the major ninja villages need the support of the daimyo to legitimately obtain the resources of the entire country to support themselves. For example, the most direct financial support. When ninjas are not performing missions, they spend most of their time training. The mission bounty alone is not enough to support their own lives, let alone maintain the operation of the entire ninja village. Therefore, they need to obtain a stable source of funds in addition to the mission bounty. In a sense, the financial support given by the daimyo is actually the military expenditure of the ninja village. They achieved control over the ninja village in this way. This is also the reason why the 5 major ninja villages are extremely powerful, but they have to be controlled by the daimyo. As for bypassing the daimyo and directly using force to forcibly take resources from the entire country, this is indeed feasible, but it also means cutting off oneself from others. As long as the identity of the daimyo is still recognized by the people, their behavior of directly seizing resources will be regarded as rebellion. At that time, everyone will be the enemy, and even the self will probably fall into civil strife. King said with a serious face. Lady Terumi Mei said that we will still express our intention to submit to the daimyo of the water country. As for the current situation, it is just a matter of urgency. She will apply to the daimyo for the right to act at her own convenience. That's good. Eliuse nodded and secretly breathed a sigh of relief. I was afraid that Terumi Mei would get carried away and completely put the daimyo of the water country aside. By then, if the other party labeled them as rebels and labeled other forces as orthodox, they really couldn't stay in the water country any longer. After that, amid the sporadic harassment of the enemy, Eliuse and his party followed the reformists all the way. Although they repelled the enemy in time every time, the harassment from time to time also caused some people in the migration team to have mental breakdowns. Along the way, people kept leaving the team quietly and escaping alone with their relatives and friends. Of course, in this case, the ending of those who left the team was not much better, but they could not withstand the constant fear and intimidation created by the enemy. Many people quietly left the team despite knowing the danger. Eliuze, king and the chief of the Terumi tribe were helpless about this situation. Unless the enemies following them were completely eliminated, this kind of private departure from the team would never stop. Unfortunately, their main force was in the hands of Terumi Mei. At present, the power in their hands was only enough to barely protect the migration team, and there was no extra manpower to deal with this crisis. After 10 days of advancement, their situation finally took a turn for the better. Terumi Mei led the main force that was left behind and returned. Perhaps they realized that the situation was not good, and the small groups of enemies who followed and harassed the migration team fled early and disappeared completely, which made Eliuze and others who had finally waited for return around completely vent and almost exploded. Hey, Rokuze Genin, we meet again. Terumi waved to Rokuze from a distance and emphasized the word Genin with a playful smile. After hearing these words, Rokuze, who was originally very happy, suddenly felt uncomfortable, as if he had swallowed a fly. Although he has been studying hard and practicing hard during this period and has made great progress, he is still not as good as those who have awakened their memories of their previous lives and can directly absorb their previous life's combat experience. Perhaps they are limited by their current physical condition and cannot directly reach the peak of their previous lives, but their rich combat experience allows them to progress very quickly. Like Rokuze's peers, especially those who survived the Third Ninja World War in their previous lives, many of them have reached the level of Chunin, and some have even reached the level of Special Jonin. Only he and those unlucky guys who died young and had no combat experience to absorb are still struggling to train at the Genin level. Chapter 93, Good Guys and Bad Guys. Let's not talk about this, we can still be good friends. Eliuze said to the brown-haired girl who was walking over with a dark face. Terumi covered her mouth and chuckled, but she didn't continue to joke. Thank you for helping to escort the team during this period of time. If it weren't for the power of your clan, we don't know how many people would be killed or injured. She put away her smile and thanked Eliuze solemnly. It should be. After all, we are now in the same boat. Eliuze shrugged. By the way, how was your confrontation with the conservatives? He suddenly asked. Not very good. Terumi shook her head and said as she walked, no one was sure that they could completely swallow the other party. They just tried to fight a few times, and each had their own wins and losses. If you want to really defeat them, you can only take it slowly. That's all we can do. Eliuze nodded and sighed as well. By the way, where are the tailed beasts? Where are the 2 tailed beasts in our village? You should know the importance of the tailed beasts, right? If they fall into the hands of someone with ulterior motives, it will be a big trouble. He asked again. Of course I know that. Terumi said seriously. I have been investigating the situation of the 2 tailed beasts in the village since we returned to the village after the truce at the front. The 6-tailed beast was sealed into the body of the Jinkriki a long time ago, but it suddenly broke free from the control of Kirigakure after the truce and has long been missing. Someone once reported seeing the 6-tailed Jinkriki in the north of the Land of Water, but we did not find any actual clues. As for the 3-tailed beast, it was also sealed into the body of the Jinkriki Yagura Kujitachi after the war. Like in his previous life, he became a perfect Jinkriki this time, and his combat power is even better than in his previous life. However, that guy is immature and has been fooled by those old conservatives and has lost his way. He firmly stands on the side of the conservatives to avenge the 3rd generation. This time, he caused us great pressure in the initial confrontation with the conservatives. Is that so? Rokuze couldn't help but sigh after hearing this. Although the disappearance of the 6-tailed beast makes people feel very sorry, at least the 3-tailed beast is still there. If you want to revive the 10-tailed beast, all 9-tailed beasts are indispensable. As long as the 3 tails is still there, everything is still within control. But when the 3 tails is mentioned, Eliuze suddenly thought of another person. Oh, by the way, where is the little girl named Nohuralin? I should have sent someone to inform you last time that Uchiha Obito and Hatake Kakashi had sneaked into the Land of Water. He turned his head and looked at the brown-haired girl next to him. She was a very important person, and he was eager to know the situation of the girl. It's a pity. Meditarumi spread her hands helplessly and pouted. Although that guy is still alive, he is also in the hands of the conservatives and is not under our control. It is said that those guys seem to be planning to use her to threaten Uchiha and want to take Uchiha power for their own use. Hearing this news, Eliuze was stunned for a moment, and then he said with a smile, I have to say that the idea of the conservative guys is quite bold. But if it were me, I'm afraid I would also want to try it. Uchiha strength is obvious to all. Even without the power of the Ten Tails, he is also an extremely powerful ninja. I hope they don't make things worse. Meditarumi looked quite helpless. But, haven't you ever thought about getting some benefits from Hatake Kakashi and the others? Rokuze asked with a smile. What benefits can there be from just the two of them? Meditarumi was about to reject it, but she suddenly stopped in the middle of her words. She frowned slightly and analyzed. It's okay for Uchiha. Without the power of the Ten Tails, he is at best a relatively powerful ninja. But Hatake Kakashi is different. His teacher is Konoha's 4th Hokage Minato Namikaze. Among his future disciples, Uzumaki Naruto was Konoha's 7th Hokage in his previous life, and even he himself was Konoha's 6th Hokage in his previous life. Realizing this, Meditarumi immediately understood that such a unique identity destined Hatake Kakashi to have extremely deep political capital, and it was not without profit. What about you? What do you think about this matter, or do you have any plans? She immediately asked Rokuze. Eliuze did not hide his thoughts and said playfully, since the conservatives want to be the bad guys, then we should just be the good guys. It is definitely better to have a friend like Hatake Kakashi than an enemy like Hatake Kakashi. Especially with our current situation, it is really not suitable to make any extra enemies. Your idea coincides with mine. Meditarumi nodded and said, however, we can't be too proactive, otherwise it is likely to lead to counterproductive effects. Why not just let the people below keep an eye on them first, and when they have suffered enough, give them some timely help at the appropriate time. As she spoke, a playful smile appeared on her face. You are such a mean girl. Eliuze couldn't help but look at her with a smile, and then said, but I'm a little worried. We can think of these things, so the old conservative guy can't fail to think of them. What if they also want to make friends with Hatake Kakashi and directly hand over Nohara? Then our plan will all fail. Don't worry about that. Terumi Medi waved her hand and said sarcastically, it is said that they had made this plan as early as when we stopped fighting with Konoha. Even in order to control Uchiha more conveniently, they deliberately made some moves on Nohara. Now, they can't turn back, they can only go all the way. As she said that, the sarcasm on her face became more and more intense. That's really God's help to me. Eliuze felt very relieved after hearing this. At this moment, Taketori Shinsuke walked up quickly and whispered, Sir, I just received an important message. What message? Eliuze asked with a serious face. There is a strange boy approaching Kimimero, and according to our observations, he looks very much like the Zion that you asked us to focus on before, but then lost. Taketori Shinsuke replied seriously. Although they had tried their best with Rokuze's instructions, they were still discovered by the Zion, and then got rid of their pursuit. Hearing this, Rokuze's spirit was shocked. He immediately said to the brown-haired girl next to him, Sister Terumi Mei, please lend me some people to help me capture a very important person. No problem. How many do you want? Terumi Mei agreed immediately. I want 100 ninjutsu type ninjas, including several perception type ninjas. Rokuze immediately put forward his request. Chapter 94, Capturing the Pharmacist, Part 1. So many? Meditarumi was surprised and asked suspiciously, are you going to catch the tailed beasts? The strength of the tailed beasts in the entire ninja world is obvious to all, and it has almost become a special standard for measuring individual strength. Below the tailed beasts, they are ordinary people, still at the level of mortals. Above the tailed beasts, they are inhuman, completely beyond the imagination of ordinary people, and each of them has the ability to change the local battlefield situation. Rokuze asked her for so many people, which is enough to deal with the tailed beasts. It's not a tailed beast, but it's almost the same as a tailed beast. It's just that guy is slippery and not easy to catch. Rokuze shrugged. Okay, I'll assign people to you right away. Terumi nodded. Don't be in a hurry. Ryuze hurriedly stopped her and said, that guy is very alert. Your sudden large-scale mobilization of manpower is likely to alarm him. I suggest that you notify your people to pretend to stop and rest, and then naturally fall to the back of the team, so that I can gather everyone without knowing it. You are so cunning. It's so unlucky to be your enemy. After hearing this, Terumi rolled her eyes at him, but still passed the order down. Not long after, Ryuze followed his own method and unknowingly gathered nearly 200 people at the back of the migration team. Among them, nearly 100 people came from their bamboo clan. As a famous family in the field of close combat, he naturally would not forget to use his own advantages. The remaining more than 100 people mainly came from Terumi's side. They were mainly ninjutsu type, which could make up for the power deficiency of their clan, including 2 perception type ninjas. Then, Ryuze instructed all the mist ninjas, wait a minute, I want you to form a huge encirclement with Taketori Shinsuke as a core, and help me capture someone in the encirclement. As for the target, just watch his actions. As he said that, he looked at Taketori Shinsuke beside him. His own people naturally knew Shinsuke, but the 100 people borrowed from Terumi might not know him. He needed to use Taketori Shinsuke as a beacon, to point out the target, to be captured for everyone. Understood. Everyone nodded. But, sir, why didn't you tell us the target we wanted to capture directly? One person asked in confusion. Ryuze patiently explained, the person we want to capture is an intelligence officer himself, and he has a keen sense of danger. Once I tell you, you will involuntarily look at him, and then alert him in advance. On the contrary, if you don't know the target to capture in advance, it will be less likely to alert him. I see, I've learned. The man nodded seriously. If there are no questions, everyone can disperse freely, and start setting up the encirclement. Ryuze immediately instructed everyone. Yes. Everyone responded and then quietly dispersed. As a beacon, Taketori Shinsuke, with 4 elite jonins of the same clan, slowly approached Taketori Kimimaro in the crowd in front. Because of Ryuze's words, he did not dare to look too much at the boy, who was chatting with Kimimaro, and could only focus on Kimimaro. In this way, the two sides gradually closed the distance. However, as the distance gradually shortened, Kimimaro gradually noticed something strange, a feeling of being spied on. He turned around suddenly and immediately met Taketori Shinsuke's sharp eyes. Oh no, I've been discovered. He was suddenly shocked, and his face turned pale. He thought that the people around him would not arouse suspicion by taking advantage of the chaotic situation of the merger of the Taketori clan and the reformists to contact him. But he didn't expect that he would still be targeted. He was about to remind the other party, but suddenly the words Ryuze said to him rang in his heart. Don't forget, your life was given by your parents. Your corpse fane was given by the Taketori clan. As long as the Taketori clan survives, you are not qualified to abandon the clan, and you are not qualified to use the power given to you by the clan to serve others. At this moment, his mood was extremely conflicted. He didn't know what he should do. At this moment, the boy next to him also noticed his abnormality. Kimimaro, what's wrong with you? No, nothing. Kimimaro clenched his fists tightly and showed a very reluctant smile. Seeing him like this, the boy next to him didn't believe that he was really okay. He looked behind Kimimaro inconspicuously, and he immediately noticed that 4 ninjas from the Taketori clan were staring at Kimimaro. Why are they staring at Kimimaro? He was stunned for a moment, but soon reacted. No, they are not staring at Kimimaro, they are staring at me. Realizing this, he didn't care about saying goodbye to Kimimaro anymore. He immediately rushed out with a speed that was not inferior to that of a senior ninja, ready to escape from here. However, how could Taketori Shinsuke, who had been eyeing him for a long time, let him go easily? Catch him! Taketori Shinsuke shouted angrily and accelerated to catch up. As an adult, especially good at physical skills, his speed was naturally faster than that of ninjas of the same level. But in a moment, he used the flash body technique to intercept Zion's way. Get out of the way. Zion shouted angrily, used his left hand to make a seal, and then opened his right hand wide. Shadow snake hand in an instant. Several large snakes as thick as wrists shot out from his sleeves and ran directly towards Taketori Shinsuke. However, Taketori Shinsuke did not avoid it, but continued to speed up and rushed over, silently mobilizing chakra to activate his own corpse bone vein. Just when those snakes were about to fall on him, several bone spurs suddenly appeared on his body and immediately pierced those snakes into skewers, leaving them no room for further development. Damn it. Seeing this, Zion couldn't help but curse secretly and had to let go of the big snakes whose tails were still wrapped around his wrists. He wanted to use this trick to entangle his opponent, but several big snakes were killed at the first sight. If he didn't let go in time, he might be pulled over by the enemy. At this time, Taketori Shinsuke also took advantage of the momentum to come to Zion's front and poked the bone spur in his palm. Swish. Surprisingly, his bone spur pierced the opponent's shoulder very smoothly. Fortunately, he didn't aim at the vital point, otherwise this blow would be fatal. However, before he had time to feel happy, he saw that the pierced boy in front of him turned into a clay doll, Earth Escape clone. He immediately realized that he had been deceived. The opponent used the clone as a substitute and used the substitute technique to get rid of his entanglement. It's really amazing. No wonder Lord Liu's is so cautious. He was amazed secretly. This is an extremely high-end technique. Even among the elite jonin, only a very few have mastered such advanced skills. Chapter 95, Capturing the Pharmacist, Part 2. At the same time, seeing Taketori Shinsuke suddenly attack and fight with others, the crowd around him suddenly felt very uneasy. Just when they were confused, Liu's voice came from afar. All irrelevant people should disperse immediately and not stay any longer to interfere with the arrest operation. Everyone suddenly understood and began to disperse spontaneously. Zion, who had just used the substitution technique to get rid of Taketori Shinsuke, was also mixed in. The crowd pretended to be nervous and wanted to take the opportunity to leave here. However, just when Taketori Shinsuke just fought with him, many ninjas who were responsible for ambushing around him immediately locked him. Although he deceived Taketori Shinsuke with the Earth Escape clone and substitution technique, there were too many people surrounding him. More than 200 people locked him from different angles. Even though he could deceive Taketori Shinsuke and some people's visual senses with his superb skills, in the eyes of others, all his actions were clearly known. Especially among them were two perceptive ninjas. Water style, water whip, water style, water whip. In order to prevent innocent people from being hurt and to give other unrelated people in the encirclement a chance to retreat, a considerable number of the 100 ninjutsu type ninjas used this technique tacitly. Seeing that more than 20 blue water whips shot out from all directions, they were very accurately caught by Zion. Oh no. Zion was a little surprised to find that his whereabouts were exposed. But what surprised him most was that there seemed to be too many people attacking him at the same time, and he felt that he had fallen into a huge encirclement. However, with his flexible body, he only pushed his feet hard on the ground, and the whole person suddenly flew into the air, immediately avoiding the restraint of the 20 or so water whips. There, don't let him run away. At this time, seeing their companions take action, the other Miss Ninjas who had not yet discovered Zion's whereabouts also found his whereabouts again. Water style, water wave, water style, water blade. Everyone launched a powerful ninjutsu offensive again and attacked Zion one after another. In an instant, countless gorgeous ninjutsu turned into a storm, releasing a terrifying aura of destruction. Damn it. There are too many of them. Zion cursed angrily, but he still quickly formed seals and cast spells to defend himself. Water style, water array wall. A large amount of chakra dissipated from his body surface, turning into a blue torrent that rushed up from the ground and covered him completely. Boom. Facing the ninjutsu attacks of dozens of people at the same time, his water barrier only lasted for 5 seconds before it was completely shattered, and then it was completely submerged by all the ninjutsu. Everyone was a little surprised when they saw it and did not continue to attack, because they all knew that Liu's wanted to capture people alive, not dead. However, they could not guarantee that the other party would survive the ninjutsu attacks of dozens of people at the same time. Seeing this, Eliusa reminded loudly, "Don't relax, that guy won't die so easily. Everyone, cheer up, don't let him get away." Seeing that the other party had used the shadow snake hand before, he had completely confirmed the identity of Kabuto. This is Orochimaru's special move, and only he, Red Bean, and Kabuto can use it. At this moment, the only one who can appear here is Kabuto, whom he has been pursuing, and it can't be the other two. And he knows Kabuto's strength very well, especially he is good at medical ninjutsu. Even if the water array wall cannot completely block all ninjutsu attacks, it can still reduce a considerable part of the lethality. With his superb medical ninjutsu, the remaining ones that are still acting on him must not be a problem. Hearing his words, everyone was skeptical and strictly guarded their own defense line. At this time, all irrelevant personnel in the encirclement had been evacuated, leaving only the boy surrounded by them, and it was easier for them to move. At this time, the two perception type ninjas placed on both sides of the encirclement by Eliusa issued warnings at the same time. "Be careful, that guy has gone underground, and is trying to escape from below." Upon hearing this, everyone was shocked. Unexpectedly, after being attacked by so many people's ninjutsu at the same time, the opponent still had the energy to escape. However, after being slightly surprised, everyone responded. They did not waste time looking for the entrance left by the opponent on the ground, and directly launched a large-scale ninjutsu attack. Earth escape, earth cracking palm, earth escape, earth cracking palm, water escape, water bursting wave, water escape, water bursting wave, lightning escape, ground walking, lightning escape, ground walking. Those who are good at earth escape directly broke the ground. Those who are good at water escape created a flood to flood, and those who are good at lightning escape used the water to transmit the power of lightning to deeper underground. Faced with such a saturation ninjutsu attack, Zion, who had escaped underground, naturally could not avoid it, and was immediately hit by the ninjutsu attacks of everyone. "Ah!" he screamed immediately, after he could no longer bear it, and rushed out from the cracked ground. Seeing this, Eliusa reminded him again, "Be gentle, don't kill him. You can attack in batches and take turns. Don't give him any chance to breathe. It has been a long time since everyone awakened their memories of their past lives." He is not sure whether Kabuto has mastered the immortal arts again, but he knows very well that the power of immortal arts is extremely strong. Once the opponent successfully launches it, it will be difficult for them to catch him again, and it is not impossible for him to escape directly. For the sake of safety, just in case, he will never give Kabuto a chance to perform immortal arts. As long as they attack in turns, and don't give the opponent time to accumulate natural energy, even if they have immortal arts, they can't perform them. Hearing his command, everyone immediately began to adjust, and spontaneously divided into 3 batches, launching ninjutsu attacks in turns. Although the attack area of their ninjutsu has been severely reduced, it is continuous and leaves people no chance to breathe. Seeing that the situation is getting worse and worse, he can only defend himself, and has no spare energy to fight back. Zion immediately made up his mind to break through the blockade and escape, no matter how much it costs. Then, he aimed in a direction, dodging the ninjutsu attacks, while rushing towards the Taketori ninjas in the inner layer of the encirclement. Soon, with his agility, he broke through the blockade of the heavy ninjutsu attacks and finally came to the edge of the encirclement. Unfortunately, he underestimated the strength of the Taketori clan in the field of close combat, or he overestimated himself now. Although he has completely absorbed all the memories and combat experience brought by his previous life, his body is still in the shape of a teenager, far from the peak state during the 4th Ninja World War in his previous life. This also makes his level of consciousness exceed his body, and he cannot fully exert his combat skills. In just a moment, he fought with a garrison Taketori John in 4-5 rounds, not only failed to break through successfully, but was pierced all over by the opponent's bone spurs. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96, Capturing the Pharmacist, Part 2. However, for Zion, Being injured was just the beginning of disadvantages. Being in a huge encirclement, if he could not break through the enemy's obstruction and blockade in time, it meant that he would face the siege of other adjacent enemies. At the same time, when Zion was stabbed, several bamboo ninjas nearby also rushed over and launched an offensive together. Damn it. Knowing that he could not defeat the enemy, Zion had to curse secretly and chose to retreat. However, it was not so easy to get rid of the bamboo ninjas who were good at close combat at such a close distance. Several bamboo ninjas opened their palms at the same time, silently mobilized chakra to activate the corpse bone vein. In an instant, several bone spurs drilled out of their palms and stabbed at the retreating target at a very fast speed. There was no time to dodge and defend, and Zion could only adjust his body shape and avoid the vital points as much as possible. Swish. Seeing that the several bone spurs penetrated his body, there was blood flowing out of the wound and dripping on the ground. Taking advantage of the opportunity, many ninjutsu type ninjas on the outer layer of the encirclement also attacked again, trying to completely capture the target boy. Water style, water whip, water style, water whip. They all used restrictive ninjutsu, throwing out streams of water whips. However, the tenacity of Zion far exceeded everyone's imagination. He forcibly pulled himself off the bone spur and retreated quickly, and used his superb medical ninjutsu to heal his wounds, dodging the streams of water whips in time. However, when he regained his footing, he was already panting and looked exhausted. Just as the surrounding mist ninjas were about to attack again, they saw him raise his right hand and shout, "Wait, I have something to say." Everyone looked at each other, but they all stopped at the same time. Looking around, Zion said loudly, "I'm just a wandering medical ninja. Did you misunderstand me? Did you recognize the wrong person?" Seeing this, Eliuze came outside the encirclement and said with a smile, "There is no misunderstanding. The person we want to catch is you. You don't have to pretend anymore, Kabuto Yakushi." At this point, he didn't hide anymore and directly exposed the other party's identity. Hearing this, Zion and the encirclement fell silent. After a long time, he took off his glasses, then slowly raised his right hand, fumbled around the edge of his cheek, and then tore off a piece of skin, revealing his original face. "I didn't expect that you still recognize me," Kabuto sighed. After this period of secret investigation, he also knew that Taketori Rokuze wanted to arrest him. He thought he had been careful enough, but he didn't expect that he still couldn't hide. At the same time, seeing the young face originally hidden under the human skin mask, Rokuze still recognized it at a glance. It was Kabuto Yakushi. At this time, Mediterumi came over and nodded. "So, it's really that guy. No wonder you made such a big scene to catch him." As she said that, she couldn't help but glance at Rokuze next to her. She had also experienced the 4th Ninja World War in her previous life. Although she had not directly fought with Kabuto Yakushi, she had indirectly heard about his strength from other places. Especially that immortal reincarnation technique caused a lot of trouble for the ninja coalition at that time. Thinking of this, she immediately ordered behind her, "Ayo Jonin, please transfer another 200 people. Don't let Kabuto Yakushi escape. This person is very important to us, and his value is inestimable." After seeing the power of the immortal reincarnation technique, no one would not be tempted by it, even she, who was the 5th generation Mizukage in her previous life. Unfortunately, the immortal reincarnation technique is a forbidden technique of Konoha, so it is naturally not so easy for them to succeed. But Kabuto Yakushi knows this trick. As long as they catch Kabuto Yakushi, they will naturally have the opportunity to obtain that powerful forbidden technique. Hearing her words, Rokuze couldn't help but frown and said, "Looking at your posture, are you going to snatch someone from me?" Facing his slightly threatening gaze, Terumi Mei remained unmoved and said, "He will use the immortal reincarnation technique. You should understand the significance of this technique to any ninja force. Now, capturing Kabuto Yakushi is no longer a private matter for the Taketori clan. At most, I can promise you that I will share the things on Kabuto Yakushi with you." Hearing this, Rokuze couldn't help but be shocked. He was busy wanting to get the relevant data on Kabuto's research on corpse veins by Orochimaru, but he never thought of forgetting the more important immortal reincarnation technique. With this technique, Terumi Medi would never hand over Kabuto Yakushi to the Taketori clan to deal with alone. Realizing this, he had to nod his head. Okay then. Let's share together. At this time, as Terumi Medi's order was passed down, King once again joined the encirclement with 200 people. For a moment, Kabuto actually felt like he was in a sea of people. Facing such a strong encirclement, he felt helpless. Even at the peak of his previous life, facing so many people at the same time, he could only choose to retreat and did not dare to confront them head on. Now, with his current situation, it is impossible to deal with so many people, and even escaping has become a luxury. Okay, I won't fight anymore. I choose to surrender. He raised his hands high above his head and completely gave up resistance. He knew very well why these people caught him, so he didn't have to worry about his safety at all. Seeing this, Liu Zen immediately asked Terumi Medi next to him, do you have the kind of torture instruments or techniques that can limit chakra? Add them to him first. Terumi meditated for a while and instructed behind him, King Jonin, please find a few pairs of restriction handcuffs used by the Enbu. Restriction handcuffs are special ninja tools developed by the Kirigakure Enbu specifically for the detention of ninjas. They can greatly suppress the ninja's chakra, thereby making the ninja lose the ability to resist. After all, a ninja without chakra is not much stronger than an ordinary person. Yes. King turned and left. Not long after, he came back with 4 pairs of handcuffs. Throw it to him, and let him put it on first. Liu Zen glanced into the encirclement in a signaling manner. He never dared to underestimate the danger of Kabuto, especially when there was no chakra restriction. Even if the other party had expressed surrender, a rash approach would likely lead to unpredictable consequences. Hearing his words, King hesitated a little and cast his eyes on Terumi. Terumi did not speak, but nodded slightly. With this person's approval, King did not delay any further, and immediately threw 4 pairs of restrictive handcuffs into the encirclement. Wow. The 4 pairs of handcuffs fell precisely at Kabuto's feet. Liu Zen saw this and reminded loudly, now, please handcuff yourself first. Don't forget to put 2 pairs on your hands and feet. Chapter 97, Migration End. You are so careful. Kabuto shook his head and reached out to pick up a pair of restriction handcuffs from the ground. Although it was the first time he saw them, he still guessed the purpose of these handcuffs. Without much hesitation, he calmly handcuffed the handcuffs he picked up to his wrists. At the moment, when the handcuffs were closed, a slight electric current seemed to be released from the handcuffs. Kabuto felt that his chakra became extremely heavy, and it was difficult to mobilize and use it freely. However, for ninjas, the power of chakra is extremely precious. They have long been accustomed to its existence. If they lose its function rashly, Kabuto suddenly felt that he had no strength in his body, and then he collapsed to the ground uncontrollably. Seeing this, Liu winked at Taketori Shinsuke and others inside the encirclement. Approach slowly and use the remaining handcuffs on him. After receiving the signal, Taketori Shinsuke and others immediately nodded and slowly walked towards the fallen Yakushi Kabuto. Walking up to the other party, seeing that he still did not make any extra movements, Shinsuke carefully picked up one of the restriction handcuffs and carefully handcuffed it on Kabuto's feet. At this point, both hands and feet of Yakushi Kabuto were roasted, greatly reducing the threat. Then, he struck while the iron was hot, and added the other 2 pairs of handcuffs, completely cutting off the possibility of the other party breaking free. Sir, it's okay now. Taketori Shinsuke turned around and shouted loudly to Liu. However, Liu was still unmoved when he saw it, and said to King, who was not far away, add 2 more iron chains to him, so that others can strengthen the supervision and control. Understood. King nodded, and then collected 2 iron chains from all around, and threw them at Kabuto's feet again. Taketori Shinsuke and others understood, and then used the iron chains to tie up Yakushi Kabuto, leaving only 4 tail chains outside, which were tightly held in their hands. In this way, whether Kabuto Yakushi wanted to escape by himself or someone outside wanted to save him, they could not bypass the 4 ninjas holding the chains. Let's go, my Mizukage-sama, let's go and see what we have gained together. After reminding Terumi next to him, Liu Zen walked into the encirclement. Hearing this, Terumi seemed to have thought of something, and could not help but be stunned for a moment, looking at Liu's back, wanting to say something, but in the end she couldn't say it, and just followed him with a smile. As the many surrounding Miss Ninjas automatically made way, Liu and others came to Kabuto Yakushi smoothly. Perhaps slowly adapting to the feeling of not being able to use chakra, Kabuto sat up straight, looking at the people coming towards him and smiled bitterly. I say, you are too careful. Not only did you put 4 pairs of handcuffs on me, but you also added 2 chains. Am I that scary? I think, no matter how cautious you are, there is no problem with you. Liu said with a serious face. I think so too. Meditarumi also looked serious. Then I really have to thank you for your hospitality. Kabuto smiled bitterly and shook his head. Rokuze then said, I believe that with your intelligence, you should understand why we arrested you. As long as you cooperate well, we can guarantee that you will leave the land of water safely. Hearing this, Meditarumi's face turned stern, and she couldn't help but gently touch Rokuze's elbow. Hey, I didn't agree. She reminded quietly. For a dangerous person like Kabuto Yakushi, she would rather keep him imprisoned until he died, and she was not willing to release him and become a huge threat to her side. Especially the cruelty of the 4th Ninja World War in the previous life is still vivid. Liu did not hide it. He glanced at Kabuto and patiently persuaded Terumi, there is gain and loss. If you want to gain something, you must lose something. Don't forget, this guy was originally an intelligence officer. His ability to keep secrets is unmatched by ordinary people. It is not easy to pry something out of his mouth. If you really completely cut off his way of life and let him see no hope at all, I'm afraid he will never cooperate with us in this life. Then, okay. Terumi hesitated for a moment, agreed with Liu's idea, and said to Kabuto seriously, as long as you cooperate with us well, we can agree to let you leave safely. Sorry, I refuse. Kabuto shook his head and answered decisively. Don't answer so quickly. Liu smiled slightly and said confidently, we still have a lot of time to get along slowly. I believe you will definitely agree to us. There is never anything absolute in the world. As long as the right price is found, even the most outrageous transactions can be reached. Really? Then I'm looking forward to what means you will use. Pharmacist Kabuto smiled slightly and seemed very calm. He was confident that he had seen countless criminal laws and methods and would never be easily forced to reveal his secrets. Alright. Let's all go. Meditarumi waved her hand and ordered everyone, take him away and keep him under strict supervision. No unrelated people are allowed to approach. Yes. Many Miss Ninjas responded and then dragged Kabuto Yakushi away with iron chains. At this time, as all the problems were settled, the migration team that had stopped started again and continued to move forward. However, when they set off again this time, everyone had some new topics to talk about. Kabuto Yakushi, as one of the initiators of the 4th Ninja World War in the previous life, he left a very deep impression on many people with his immortal reincarnation technique. This time, everyone was very excited to be captured alive by Meditarumi and others. In this way, after nearly 10 days of travel, the migration team arrived at the largest seaport city, Angry Sea City, on the southeast side of the central island, which was also the final destination of their migration. During this period, Liu and Meditarumi visited Kabuto Yakushi from time to time, but they did not get anything useful out of each other's mouth. In addition, their migration team has shrunk a lot, with nearly half of the people missing, and most of them are ordinary people. Of course, those who disappeared did not have any accidents, but were arranged by Meditarumi to the towns along the way during the migration. After all, there are too many people in their migration team, more than 10,000 people, and it will bring a heavy burden to them, no matter which city they are transferred to. Therefore, Meditarumi broke up the whole into small pieces and settled some people in the towns along the way as a family unit. In this way, it will not bring too much burden to the resettled towns, but also make it easier for local residents to accept it and give those who follow her a safe treatment, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. At this time, knowing that they have arrived, the Lord of Nuhei City has led people to greet them outside the city. Welcome to us, Lord Terumi. The Lord of Nuhei City walked over with a smile. Chapter 98, Settlement. Seeing that the city lord's smile was forced, Terumi immediately comforted him. Don't be nervous. Everything is done according to the rules. I think you also know what happened in the Kirigakure village. We will settle here temporarily and take over the defense of Angry Sea City by the way. As for the rule of Angry Sea City, we will not interfere. However, the taxes and materials that Angry Sea City and its surrounding cities should have been sent to the daimyo's mansion need to be divided and received directly by us instead of being distributed to Kirigakure through the daimyo's mansion. For the entire water country, the ninja village is just a military organization and cannot directly govern any town. This is also the consensus of the entire ninja world, to prevent ninjas from forcibly ruling ordinary people by force. Although there are still cases of ninjas using force to dictate in some remote places, they are only a minority after all. In the entire ninja world, ninjas mainly assist local governments in ruling in an assisting manner. Yes. Everything is done according to the rules. The Lord of the Wrathful Sea wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and finally breathed a sigh of relief. He knew the strength of these ninjas. If they wanted to seize the ruling power of the Wrath of the Sea City, he would have to hand it over reluctantly. But since they followed the rules, he naturally didn't have to worry too much. Just, should we notify the daimyo? The Lord of the Wrath of the Sea City asked carefully. He knew that every time he sent a part of the tax to the daimyo's mansion, it would be transferred to the Hidden Mist village. But this time, Terumi and her team directly bypassed the daimyo to collect it, which was really a bit against the rules. No need. Terumi waved her hand and said seriously, on the way here, we have already written a letter to the daimyo to explain the situation, and we have also received the daimyo's consent. As she said that, she spread out her right hand to King next to her. King understood and immediately took out a letter from his pocket and put it in Terumi's hand. This is the reply from the daimyo. Take a look for yourself. Terumi then handed the letter to the Lord of the city. The Lord of the Wrath of the Sea City immediately took the letter and opened it to examine it carefully. After a long time, after thoroughly confirming the authenticity of the letter, he closed the letter again and handed it to Terumi respectfully. Since the daimyo has agreed, we should obey, he said with his head down. Okay. After putting away the letter, Terumi said again, I don't want to say the rest of the polite words. We still have many ordinary villagers from Kirigakure who need to be arranged. Please take care of them, Lord. They have been bumping along with me on the road these days. It's time for them to have a good rest. Please rest assured, Lord, I will make proper arrangements. The Lord of Nuhei City immediately patted his chest and made a promise. Then, under his arrangement, the migration team was placed in a corner of Nuhei City, and relying on the extraordinary abilities of the ninjas, they quickly built small wooden houses for everyone. Although the conditions are still relatively simple, it is already very happy compared to the days of sleeping in the open before. At the same time, after arranging accommodation for the tribe members, Luz, as the acting tribe leader, gathered everyone and began to lecture. Everyone, the old era has passed, and a new chaotic era has arrived. In the days to come, we will reintegrate into a new group, and start a new life. And this is also the first step I promised you to lead you back to Kirigakure. Before the words fell, the crowd below suddenly burst into applause and cheers. Being isolated by Kirigakure for a long time, most of the Taketori people are eager to change the status quo and return to the group. Although they have not yet successfully returned to Kirigakure, they have begun to contact with other people. The current situation has improved, and their living conditions are much better than before. Raising his hand to signal everyone to be quiet, Liuze continued, when you integrate into a new group and come into contact with other outsiders, friction and conflicts are inevitable. But this time, I hope everyone can treat it with a normal mind, restrain their temper, and stop acting recklessly. Even if it's not for yourself, please consider our future generations. If you don't want our future generations to be isolated and excluded like us before, then please be sure to restrain your temper. Remember not to repeat the same mistakes. We have been isolated for too long. We can't continue to be isolated like this. So, once I find someone has a conflict with an outsider, I will deal with it seriously and will never tolerate it. Hearing this, everyone immediately talked about it. It's not that they don't understand what Liuz said, but some habits can't be changed just by saying so. They can't guarantee that they will not have conflicts with outsiders. Then a tribe member asked loudly, "Excuse me, sir, what should we do if an outsider deliberately provokes us? If someone deliberately picks a fight, then beat him up. Is there any need to ask this?" Liuz smiled slightly and said, "Just because I asked everyone to restrain their tempers doesn't mean that you should just accept it and be a punching bag. If someone deliberately provokes us and makes trouble, please don't hesitate, just do what you should do. Of course, you should also be careful about how far you go. If it's not a blood feud, then don't kill them. Otherwise, if it's just a small conflict, it will escalate because you acted so hard, and it will be difficult to end it." I understand. Everyone nodded and breathed a sigh of relief. At least they understood that the acting tribe leader was still on their side and would not deliberately sacrifice the dignity and interests of the tribe members for the sake of the so-called overall situation. Okay, since everyone understands, then go down and do your own things. Liuz waved his hand to send everyone away. Yes. Everyone then dispersed. They had just settled down, and there were indeed many personal matters that needed to be dealt with. However, after most people left, Liuz noticed that there was still a thin figure left there. Kimimaro? Liuz recognized the little boy at a glance and strode up to him. "Why, do you have anything else to do?" he asked the boy curiously. "I want to know, how are you going to deal with Mr. Kabuto?" Kimimaro raised his head and asked very seriously. If it weren't for him, Kabuto Yakushi wouldn't show up so easily, and maybe he wouldn't be caught. Whenever he thought of this, he felt very guilty and didn't know how to face Orochimaru in the future. You know, Kabuto Yakushi is the right-hand man of Lord Orochimaru. Seeing his worry, Liuz smiled slightly and said, "You don't have to worry. Kabuto Yakushi has a lot of important things in his hands and is very valuable to us. We will not harm his life easily. In fact, if he is willing to cooperate with the work, maybe we can let him go soon." There is one more thing I forgot to tell you. During the 4th Ninja World War in the previous life, Kabuto Yakushi had already betrayed. No, it's better to say it's independence rather than betrayal. He has broken away from Orochimaru and is no longer a vassal of Orochimaru. So, you don't need to worry about his safety anymore. And you don't have to feel too guilty for his arrest. He and you are no longer the same kind of people. Hearing this shocking news, Kimimaro stood still and couldn't come back to his senses for a long time. Chapter 99. Changes in Mentality. Seeing this, Liuz struck while the iron was hot and said, "Your understanding of this world is still stuck at the age of 15 in your previous life. However, in the days after your death, the entire ninja world has undergone earth-shaking changes. Many people and many things are completely beyond your understanding." Suddenly, as if remembering something, he snapped his fingers and said, "I remember that Orochimaru seemed to have captured a child from the Hazuki family. His name is Hazuki Sujetsu, and he is also the younger brother of the ninja sword prodigy Hazuki Mainjutsu. As an important test subject of Orochimaru, you should know him. That guy also lived until after the 4th Ninja World War. If you have the chance, you can talk to him. You can get more information about Orochimaru after your death in your previous life from him. However, I remember that guy should still be in his mother's belly now. If you want to see him, you may have to wait for a while." As he said that, he patted the little boy's shoulder gently to show encouragement. "Thank you for your reminder. If I have a chance I will definitely go and talk to him." Kimimaro nodded solemnly. This world after rebirth is too strange and chaotic. He is full of confusion about the future and doesn't know where to go. If he can really meet Suzuki Hazuki and get to know Orochimaru better, he may be able to make the final decision. Originally, Kabuto Yakushi would be a more suitable target, but that guy is now imprisoned as an important target. With his sensitive identity, it is probably difficult to meet him again. There is one more thing I want to remind you. Liuz leaned down, leaned close to the little boy's ear, and whispered, "If one day you really decide to leave the Bamboo Clan, then I will kill you in the name of the acting clan leader. As long as our clan has not perished, I will never allow anyone to betray again." Feeling the serious killing intent released from Liuz, Kimimaro couldn't help but shrink his pupils and almost stopped his heartbeat. He was not afraid of death. He was just shocked by the seriousness of the acting clan leader. Because of this person, he had to carefully examine his own tribe again, so that the impression of this tribe, which was originally vague in his memory of his previous life, became clear. Now, his mother is here, his home is here, and the weight of the tribe naturally becomes heavier in his heart. At this moment, he couldn't help but find that Orochimaru didn't seem to be so important in his heart. The figure of that person became more and more vague and distant in his heart. Thank you for your reminder, sir. I will definitely keep it in mind. Then make a careful choice. He raised his head and said to Eliuze seriously. Very good, as long as you understand. Eliuze nodded, then turned and left without saying anything more. Orochimaru has accumulated a lot of prestige in Kimimura's heart, just like a god, and he doesn't expect to eliminate the other party's influence in Kimimura's heart with just a few words. But as long as he sees Kimimura's attitude begin to change, it means that everything he has done is not in vain. The rest can only be left to time. Time is the most powerful force in the world, and it can slowly erase everything. If the situation continues to develop like this, Kimimura will definitely not escape his palm. Soon, Eliuze came to the prison area of Angry Sea City. At this time, there were many ninjas outside the prison area. They were reinforcing the original prison to detain future enemies. You know, these prisons were originally used to detain ordinary people, and their enemies must be ninjas, not ordinary people. Naturally, this kind of ordinary prison cannot be used to directly detain ninjas. Therefore, they must reinforce the prisons, especially adding more sensitive alarm systems and protective forces. Seeing Eliuze coming, a vigilant mist ninja came up. Hello, Lord Eliuze, may I ask what's the matter? During the migration a few days ago, all the reform mist ninjas knew this young acting chief of the bamboo cutter. Although this one looks young on the surface, it is said that he lived until after the 4th Ninja World War in his previous life, and was an old man with rich life experience. And more importantly, this one is one of their reformist supporters. In addition, there is a bamboo cutter clan behind him, and he has become the real power among their reformists. I'm here to see Yakashika Buto. He should be imprisoned here, right? Eliuze asked tentatively. Yes. He is imprisoned in the deepest part of this prison. The alert mist ninja nodded and added, Mrs. Terumi Medi is also interrogating that guy down there at the moment. Do you need me to lead the way for you, sir? No need. Eliuze waved his hand and said seriously, we have just arrived here, and the situation is not very stable yet. We need to strictly strengthen the protection. Just in case, you'd better not leave your post without permission. I'll go in alone. As he said that, he bypassed the alert mist ninja and walked towards the prison gate in front. After confirming his identity again, the 2 guards outside the gate let him into the prison. At this time, the prison was as lively as the outside, and many mist ninjas were reinforcing or renovating the cells inside. Eliuze walked and looked, and went along the corridor to the deepest part of the prison. However, as he went deeper, the noisy sounds of the many mist ninjas working became weaker, and even the number of people he could see on the road became fewer and fewer. When Eliuze reached the deepest part, he could not see any mist ninja continuing their work. The cells on both sides of the corridor had been rebuilt and cleaned up. Seeing him appear, a mist ninja on guard immediately came up to him. Hello, sir. Where are the people? Eliuze asked, motioning and glancing at the empty cells on both sides. He had reached the end of the prison, but still did not see any trace of Yakashika Buto. Sir Terumi Medi is interrogating someone in the interrogation room. The guard pointed to a small door on the wall next to him and replied. So, there is another interrogation room here. After being reminded by the guard, Eliuze noticed that there was an inconspicuous small door on the wall. Originally, the lighting in this underground prison was not very sufficient, and the small door was in a backlit position, so he did not notice it at the first time. Then, he pushed the door and walked in. Perhaps to facilitate the interrogation, the light in the interrogation room was much brighter than outside. When Eliuze just walked in, he was blinded by the more dazzling light. It took him a long time to adapt to the light in the interrogation room and slowly see everything in front of him. he saw that Kabuto Yakushi was hanging on a cross and was being whipped hard by a mist ninja with a thick whip. Meditarumi sat quietly on the other side and watched all this with no expression on her face. Seeing Ryuze coming in, her calm expression finally changed a little. "Hey, you're here too," she greeted with a smile. Chapter 100, Convincing the Pharmacist, Part 1. "It's so hard to catch such a big fish, how can I not come?" Ryuze gestured and glanced at the Yakushi Kabuto tied on the shelf over there. For them, Yakushi Kabuto is like a huge treasure house. As long as they can open it, they can get incomparable wealth. They were always on the road before and could not settle down completely, so no one had the mind and free time to interrogate carefully. Now that they are finally settled, he can no longer hold back and rush over. However, he did not expect that Meditarumi was more anxious than him and had already started the torture. It's a pity that this guy is very stubborn and still refuses to say anything. Looking at the Yakushi Kabuto on the shelf, Meditarumi couldn't help but sigh. The mist ninja in charge of the execution had already used all his strength, and every whip could leave a blood mark on the opponent. However, Yakushi Kabuto seemed to be fine, and he didn't say a word at all, as if the body that was beaten to pieces was not his own body. Okay, stop, no need to beat him anymore." Ryuze saw this and quickly signaled the executioner to stop, and then said, "This guy, Kabuto Yakushi, is an intelligence officer. He has undergone special confidentiality training and is better at keeping secrets than ordinary ninjas. Moreover, he has studied the human body very deeply and has a much better understanding of the flesh than you and me. It is difficult for him to surrender with just physical punishment." Hearing this, the executioner turned around and cast a questioning look at Meditarumi, wondering whether he should stop. Seeing this, Meditarumi nodded slightly. In fact, she also knew that it was not easy to make Kabuto Yakushi speak, but she could not find any other better methods for the time being, so she could only use the common method of interrogating prisoners and give Kabuto Yakushi a full set first. If it is really useless, then forget it, but if it is useful, it will be a big profit. So, you have a better way? She turned her head and asked Ryuze with a hint of expectation. Ryuze smiled slightly, strode to the front of Shidao, and said while looking at him, "In my opinion, the so-called interrogation methods can be roughly divided into two categories. The first is physical execution, which causes physical pain to people and makes them surrender. For ordinary people with weak wills, this method is very useful and can get results immediately. The second is the art of attacking the heart." As he said this, he stopped, stretched out a finger, and pointed it very accurately at Shidao's heart. When a person's psychological defense line is opened, he will naturally talk about everything and be willing to say everything. He looked directly into Shidao's eyes and uttered the last sentence slowly. "So, you have the confidence to open my psychological defense line?" Shidao, who had been whipped without making a sound before, suddenly spoke. "There's no absolute certainty, but we can give it a try." Ryuze smiled slightly, then turned and walked towards Meditarumi and said, "The so-called heart attack technique is actually not as everyone understands it literally, a very aggressive method. The essence of heart attack is not to use tough means to break through the target's psychological defenses, but to make the other party change their attitude, let both parties reach a consensus, open their hearts, and get what they want. So, what we should do now is to make this guy agree to answer our questions first, instead of directly asking him to answer our specific questions." Meditarumi listened thoughtfully. "That's right." Ryuze nodded, turned and walked to sit beside her, and looked at the opposite side of the medicine man and said, "If he doesn't want to, no matter how much you force him, it's meaningless. Even if you beat him to death, maybe he won't say a word. So, we must first make him agree to answer our questions and change his current veto attitude. So, how are you going to convince me to agree to answer your questions?" Medicine Man asked with a hint of curiosity. Originally, he thought that the acting leader of the Bamboo Cutter clan was just a talented young man, but now after hearing these words, he realized that this person was far more talented than he thought, and was no less talented than the famous 5th Mizukage Terumi Medi in his previous life. But for some reason, he had never heard of him in his previous life. Could it be that, because the bamboo cutter clan died early in his previous life, there was no room for him to show his talents? Yakushi Kabuto secretly guessed. While Kabuto Yakushi was thinking, Meditarumi also asked, how are you going to get this guy to agree? Sitting on a stool, Luz tapped the small table next to him and said seriously, everything must be fair. Torture like you are doing is no different from robbery. Plus, that guy is determined. What you are doing will only backfire and make him more reluctant to cooperate. So, we have to lower our posture and trade with him fairly so that he will be willing to hand over what we want. That being said, are you sure you can come up with something that will make him excited? Meditarumi asked with a frown. Fair trade is not a difficult problem. They can come up with something of equal value to exchange, but something of equal value may not necessarily meet the other party's wishes. If the other party doesn't like it, the deal will naturally not be reached. Of course. Liuza gave a confident smile and said, if you want to give others something that will attract your attention, you must have a good understanding of them. As for the person in front of us, since he has been an intelligence officer since he was a child, I'm afraid that there are no more than 5 people in the entire ninja world who know his details, and I happen to be one of them. Oh. Hearing this, even Kabuto Yakushi, who was tied to the rack over there, was very surprised. He also wanted to know how well this person knew him. Then, Liuza dismissed the rest of the people, and when there were only 3 of them left in the interrogation room, he spoke slowly. I know you have traveled to many countries since you were a child, so you can't even tell which country you are from. So, you have no loyalty to any country or village. Yes, that's right. Yoshida nodded and continued, because there are so many disguised identities, sometimes even I can't remember who I am. So I'm very confused. I have completely lost the concept of country and village, and I can't find any sense of belonging. It's like a willow catkin blown by the wind. I don't know where I will drift to. For someone like me, what are you going to use to impress me? Liuza smiled slightly and said seriously, in fact, it doesn't matter which country or village you are from. What's important is what you want to do. What do you want to achieve? When you have such a goal, you can strive for it, find spiritual sustenance, and let your wandering soul find peace. So, what you are looking for is actually very simple, just a stability. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.